What is up, everyone? What is up? Happy... Oh, it's Monday again. Nobody's happy about that. It's Monday. Boo! Mondays! What's everyone up to? I know I've been needing to go back to the gym, but at least I've been outside and making fires in my fire pit and even cooking dinner. I don't know what it is, but just a steak over a fire. You can have the same meat and everything. It's way better when it's done over a fire. But yeah, so been doing with that. New job has been doing great, so can't really complain there. As you saw, we got Pragmata up last night, so we did our gaming on Linux night with that. I have to buckle down and get back into some WGU classwork, because unfortunately I haven't done that in a few weeks, and I'm like 66% behind, complete, so I may as well just finish that. And then I also need to get around to writing my presentation, because I'm going to be doing a talk in a few weeks at a cybersecurity convention. Woo! Not DEF CON or anything like that. It's more of a local regional thing. I'll have more details on that as we get closer. Hey Chief, I'm trying to play a CD or DVD on externally on a laptop. Do you recommend any good brands? Honestly, with external DVD brands and everything like that, it really doesn't matter much anymore. It's such a ubiquitous, well-known, now inexpensive technology that you should be fine with whatever external drive you get. Some may be better than others, but inherently, you know, what are you going to do? Also, my streaming PC, for some reason, looks like it may be stuttering a little bit on the video. Don't know why it would be doing that. So if we have any issues, I am just giving y'all a heads up about that right now. Welcome to the wonderful world of still having to rely on Windows for some hardware. Hooray. Eventually I'll be getting this moved over to a, a transcoding server that'll take care of all of that stuff, and then I'll just be passing through two streams, one for the vertical side and one for the regular. And then, yeah. What the hell is eating my GPU? Oh, is that it? Oh. Maybe if we just open up another tab. Let's smooth it out a little bit. Basically what it looked like was the GPU is fighting on Florp. That's fun. So I wonder if I close that, will it... Yep, magically that fixed it. Hooray, Windows and your shitty GPU scheduler. What the hell did you just put in, Dev? It literally just started at, he put it in my butt and asked, do you feel the Lord pumping through you? Oh God, when I was at my desk, the effing sun was trying to blind me. Those are like the most random things for one of my mods to just come into chat and be like, yeah, so this... got a position as a senior cops engineer from associate cybersecurity analyst. Is that a big promo? I'd have to see the details, but let me put it this way. How big is the pay bump? If there's just a title bump and no pay bump, you effectively didn't get a promotion. You effectively now just get a title with more tasks. You know, can't stay for too long today. Just jumped in to say hi. Good night. Thank you for hopping by, Bick. Appreciate you. BYK. And no, I'm not dead. I've been sleeping a lot more than normal, so I'm not dead. Just so incredibly exhausted in every avenue. Yeah? I mean, yeah, I barely heard from you, and normally we hear more from you. I mean, I noticed a certain lack of bullying femboys in my servers, or at least, bullying of the femboy, aficionados. We don't hate on anybody, we just tease everybody. 38% increased pay bump. Okay, well that's a nice raise. Yeah, it's the same as when I went from my old job to my new job, and I got a 70% pay bump. Yeah. Also, I've been looking at getting an Intel GPU for one of my upcoming builds. I was looking at the Intel B70, but I think it's still just a little bit too much for what I need for my project. So I was looking at the upcoming Intel B65, which also has 32 gigabytes of RAM, which is way more than I'm going to need, because I was looking at like 5060 Ti, 5050 at least. And that will go into my transcoding server, but I have to do some research into Intel. They look like they can do AV1 encode and decode, which is what I need, as well as H.264, but it'll be interesting. My fuck been giving head on VR chat for free to the rabbi. Need a femboy channel for photos. Well, the problem with that, Kara, is that that is way too open to abuse. Just wanted to know your thought on imposter syndrome. Recently moved from GRC to SOC engineer. You're always going to have imposter syndrome, and I'm going to tell you the honest truth is that it's going to get worse the more that you know. Because the problem that you're going to experience throughout your career is the more that you know, the more you're going to know that you don't know. So you're always going to be questioning yourself more. So basically, when we go through the entire, like, imposter syndrome, you've probably gone through the pattern of, oh, I'm learning a little bit, I'm a master of this, I can, you know, do everything possible. Your optimism is way above where it should be. Not optimism, your confidence. Okay? So you have basically, I'll bring it over here from, there we go. So there's this whole like Dunning-Kruger thing. So you'll always like start out like more confident in the earlier parts of, you know, your career. Then you're gonna have like this crash to reality of like, I don't know effing crap. And even when you become an expert, we always have this little bit of confidence gap that we'll never be as confident as we were once we were ignorant. So the fact that you're dealing with imposter syndrome is a really good sign in your own progress, because it's getting you to question that you don't know enough, so it's going to drive you to learn more, hopefully. But then a lot of people can get paralyzed by that fear of like, I'm not good enough or anything. And the reality is, you are good enough. 9 times out of 10, you're better than you realize you are, but what is it? Like, the biggest enemy of myself is myself. What is it? The enemy of perfection. What is it? The enemy of good is perfection, or something like that. You get where I'm going with that. That's where I'm going with it. Feels like my coworkers are so much more knowledgeable, trying to keep up as much as... Yeah, you'll get all around that, and eventually you'll get to the point where you're going to know things they're not going to know. Takes you a few years, but you get there. I'm there. It's fun. But you got to work through a few years of feeling like you ain't shit. Chief, I'm trying to add Windows Agent to Wazza and no word on Pop OS 26. Pop said they're going to be released within a month or two after Ubuntu officially releases, because they want to have the major bugs resolved. So I think 2604 has officially been released, if I'm not mistaken, for Ubuntu. But Pop OS 2604 has not yet, and that may not happen until maybe the end of this month to early next month. What are your opinions with people using AI to bypass security like EAC or BattlEye? They're gonna get broken eventually. Kernel-level anti-cheat is one of the dumbest things out there. So it's only gonna get worse, and then it's one of those solutions that is worse than the problem, because those kernel-level anti-cheats are gonna get more and more and more invasive, to the point that when you start looking at them, they're probably gonna be like only like a hair away from like ransomware or some gnarly malicious piece of software. Just a matter of, oh well, we let them have access. It's gonna get worse, trust me about that. I found some white powder that smelled weird and gave me energy. Yeah. Well, did you at least bring enough to share with the class? How long does it take to earn 6 figures? In the Midwest, it can take you, I'd say, a few years at least. I was just under 6 figures for my last job. Like, just under by like a few $100s. Like, this close to it. By a few, close to 6 figures. The new job, I got a nice 40% pay bump and went way past it. It'll take you a few years in the Midwest. If you're in somewhere where the cost of living is way inflated, it could probably be right out the gate, to be completely honest. Like, California is ridiculous in their cost of living. I used to live out there for a contract. You still going after a WGU degree? Yes, I am. I just haven't done any classwork in like a month. I'm gonna get back on doing that. I'm 66% done, so that'll be happening. Is there a way to play Arc Raiders on a Linux distribution? Been wanting to make the switch. I think so. It's not one of the games that I played, but some of my friends, I think, were telling me that one works on Linux. You can go to protondb.com. There's a website, if you're not familiar with this, where if you search the game up, it can tell you what the compatibility is. Yeah, it's platinum rated. So it's essentially, well, that guy's in, that's Cyrillic right there, so it's probably Russian. Yeah, they just give you like little advice. Okay, that guy switched to experimental. That one set Proton 11. This guy got it working out the box, even for multiplayer. Looks like it worked really well for them. The anti-cheat didn't pose any problems. Oui, je parlais un petit peu en français. Bet you didn't know that. Somebody made a custom thing, but basically the point being is that, yeah, it works out of the box. Checking. I'm sad I have a LilyGo LoRa 32V.161, but I don't have a micro USB to program it. I ordered an adapter for my USB-C. That's the problem that we're getting with a lot of the USB-C stuff, is now we have to get these adapters to adapt into the thing we want. Entering a cyber role for a Fortune 500, having some of these problems. Any advice? What problems? We've kind of talked about a few things. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Well, great! Now I'm scared of fear! I'm fearful of fear. Thank you for adding that to my list. Comparison is the killer of joy. Thank you. That's the saying I was looking for earlier. SOC analyst for around 3 years, moved up to a senior analyst. Tips on pivoting out of SOC. Build skills that are not really related to just the Security Operations Center. So basically, like, I'm in engineering, most of my career has been built on me building other projects and things like that. So as you know, I have an entire portfolio on my content of products that I've made, as well as GitHub with various things. So start engineering some stuff if you want to really pivot from SOC to engineering / architecture. That would be some big advice I would have for you if you wanted to tip or pivot away. Now, GRC, it's a little bit different because GRC is more about policy, risk management, risk acceptance, things like that. So, I'm not too familiar on that route, but I'm sure you can ask around for people that do like GRC. Pop feels like shit on my machine. I've tried everything. I don't know what to tell you about that. I mean, it's been working on all the machines I've put it on. So it could be some hardware issue with your machine. It could be there's some out-of-date software out the box that you have to do an update with. It's hard to say without actually having my hands on it. Does starting a new career in IT really hard now because of AI and stuff? No. Hope you appreciate the love. Could you imagine a game where if it catches you cheating, it just corrupts your shit? That would require kernel level access, and I definitely would not want that. Making 6 figures, but living like you're only making 3. Getting my degree in IT soon. Have Net Plus. Only experience as tech support volunteer. Any advice for first job? If you don't already have projects in your portfolio, definitely add projects in. You have a little bit of volunteer experience. Now, as far as getting your first job, you're going to want to find a professional resume writer. You can find them all over the internet and just compare a few and look at the reviews. They can write a resume that's going to be ATS, Application Tracking Systems, optimized. That's what a lot of HR systems are using now, because unfortunately a lot of the applications now are not seen by humans. They're first filtered by AI and processed and, you know, all of that. So get a professional resume writer to write that and make a cover letter for you. Not all jobs will take a cover letter, but for those that do, you have one, and then just adjust the template a little bit here and there. Make several different resumes as well. One for, you know, like say you're looking at, like, I'm just giving examples, like a help desk position, a junior sysadmin position, a junior network admin, or, you know, whatever titles are going to come across. You may have to alter your cover letter just as bit as well. Some of these professional resume writing services will let you do infinite rewrites of your resume for like about a year or so, so that should be more than enough. It will cost you a few hundred, but it will pay off. I know personally the difference before and after getting my resume professionally rewritten was I was not getting any callbacks to I now had too many options that I now had to figure out what I honestly wanted within a matter of weeks. Wish whiskey was back. Hey, Brewski. What's up, Hans? Can't they just run the games in like a VM or something to avoid invasive anti-cheat? No, the anti-cheat's designed to actually notice if it's in a sandbox. That's what I mean by they are so invasive, because they're hooking into the system itself to see if, quote-unquote, things are being tampered with. It's a problem. Oh, and I know the Steam controller went on sale today. They sold out in 30 minutes. I really want that fucking controller. It's $100, and there's already scalpers trying to sell it for $200. I'm not buying from a scalper. Don't you think tech stack capabilities doesn't matter more since AI can do it? Tech stack capabilities don't really matter as much if you don't know what the hell you're doing. Tell AI to do something, it may do it, but the problem is it won't be aware of your environment, the context, or a lot of the criteria that you're going to have to go in with. For example, if you give it an application to build, and let's just say you're going to, make this thing in, let's just say Python for, the sake of this argument here, it will make a Python script, but I've seen it where it will make this giant monolithic script and not modularize it. I've seen it hallucinate libraries. I've seen it use out-of-date libraries, insecure methods of access. It won't containerize the application. It won't even set up CI/CD workflows and actions like runners or anything else you may need. And like I said earlier, it won't be aware of the environment that you're building in. So there's a lot of things that AI is still not capable of doing without you steering it and giving it guardrails as well. A lot of the people that are like, well, AI can just do that, don't understand how many different parts of the puzzle go into a lot of the things in each piece of the tech stack to begin with. And even then, AI is a great tool to co-pilot with you, which is one of the few reasons why Microsoft was actually great with that name, at least on the GitHub side. But it is not going to be a great tool to be able to do all the reasoning for you. It can help you think through the process, but it cannot do the entirety of thinking for you. Does that make sense? Are you in government? Hell no! Guy says it's 7 or 8 inches. Sends photo. Doesn't look like 7 or 8 inches. Waiting on better photo. Like, put a McDonald's large root beer next to it. Are you trying to go on the dating apps again to find yourself a femboy? Secure boot and TPM enabled or disabled? So I don't use Secure Boot or TPM. Well, the Windows box I do, but the Linux ones, I kind of don't use them because I favor Lux. I know there's a bit more to Secure Boot with signing packages, but I've run into quite a few issues with it. In theory, it's great, but in practice, it's been so-so. Twitch does a better job of notifying me when you go live when TikTok does. You know, it does an even better job than that. My Discord, Twitch, Kick, and, my Discord, Matrix, Blue Sky, and Mastodon notifications from my own pod. You can sign up for the notification to ping you inside of Discord. I still got to work on the roles or how I'm going to do that in Matrix, because Matrix works a little bit differently than Discord, but still cool that I did that. Any AI that you would recommend? It's more the local models, so I've been a big fan of Quen for a bit, although Google's Gemma has been working pretty well. I think, what was it, Quen 3.5, 35B, had 3 billion active parameters, and was very close to Claude 4.6 or 4.7, I think it was, Opus, on, like, 2% difference on the SWE benchmark.
Boruo is now chilling in the lab.
I don't even know how to say that name, but thank you for the follow. What is a critical requirement when entering into the field of IT? You must be willing to constantly learn. This is not the type of field where you can just technically do everything in the day, and once you learn the things, you're, pretty much done and set for your career. Like, for example, if you were to be in carpentry, absolutely no hate to carpenters. My family has a bunch of them. You go in, you know how to put a truss together, you know how to, set up the joists and everything there, and for the most part, it's the same between each house here and there with, of course, variations of, dimensions, specs, things like that. All right. In IT and cybersecurity, as well as in many other career paths, such as medicine or legal, you have to continuously be educating yourself. And a lot of people got upset with me on Instagram and or TikTok when I said this. It's like, well, you know, that's going to cause burnout and everything. Unfortunately, there are just some career fields where that is the beast, the nature of the beast. You have to stay on top of it. Things will change. Let's look just 5 years ago. 5 years ago, technology, the way we were handling quite a few different things, was quite a bit different than we did today. Just 5 years ago, we didn't even have large language models in the common mainstream vocabulary, and now everyone is using AI here and there. Like we're getting a bunch of questions about that, and people are thinking, is that going to end entire careers? And then 5 years before that, oh, there was like, you know, you were talking about, now we're pre-5G, if I remember at the time. We're talking about, you know, plain old telephone systems are still pretty common. You know, so technology is going to always continue. You're gonna have to unlearn what you have learned. Like when I started as a kid, I was at the tail end of ring networks. Most of y'all don't know what a ring network is. Most of y'all don't even need to know what a ring network is. But that was what happened. We had thin net and thick net at the, you know, start of me getting into tech. You know, vampire taps, things like that. But yeah, so things will always change. And if having to continuously educate yourself and improve your craft and skills and continuously be learning is something that you're not ready for, then this is one of the career fields, I'm going to be honest with you, is not going to jive with you. Finally found your live stream. I think you were coming up on my Insta feeds. Probably. I've been doing very well on Instagram, shockingly. I've only been back on Instagram for about a month, and it was shocking just how fast I grew. Like, I am already past 20,000 followers on Instagram, which effectively means Threads is my worst performing platform if we exclude Kick. Live streaming platforms are a whole other bag of, you know, apples comparatively to, you know, microblogging and all that other stuff. But yeah. Thanks for keeping it real with my question. My pleasure. That's what I'm here for. How often years should we job hop? Let me put it this way. If you're looking to do job hopping, I would at most do it once a year, but I would give each job potentially the opportunity of 2 to 3 years, because you never know. Sometimes you find a job where the culture, the fit, everything about it is just right, and they may have opportunities for you to grow. If after 2 or 3 years you don't see there being potential growth, find your exit plan. That is exactly what I did at my last job. I gave them 3 years of an opportunity. First year was great. After that point, I was like, okay, I'll stick around for a bit. This might be good. There might be growth. They were dangling the carrot for so long of, oh yeah, we can, you know, get you senior engineer, all of that. Role becomes open, they instead go hire outside the company. At that point was when I really just started to, you know, sit back and be like, well, I need to find my exit plan. And that was in part why I got my CISSP when my last employer was offering it. Because I was planning to go to senior, and I knew if I stayed there and got it, the CISSP wouldn't matter, but if I were to go get a job elsewhere, then it would matter. So, yeah, literally 1 month away from my 3-month anniversary, I left my last job. And I went from being a security engineer who was overworked, like way overworked, to the point, like, when I was sitting in the interview, they're like, so what do you manage every day? And I'm like, well, I help manage Proofpoint, Zscaler, CrowdStrike, Tenable, and the AWS stuff, and help build the infrastructure as code out for them, and help, with the Linux knowledge. And like, Jesus, each one of those things has a whole team dedicated to it, basically, where we're at. So now I'm, sitting in making about 40% more money, and I am a lot less stressed. I feel a lot more valued. But yeah, give yourself, don't hop more than once every year, because the thing is, you want to stick around for the potential bonuses. So find out when you are going to have the rounds of bonuses. At the very least, have your exit plan be after that bonus hits your bank account. That's what I would really advise you on. So 1 year, wait till you get a possible bonus. If no bonus, then split. That's what happened at my last job. They decided, oh, we're not going to give you a bonus. There's a whole bunch of BS. I've told you before that the upper leadership they had it out for me for whatever reason. Where it's funny because all my coworkers are like, we like him. All the people that used to work with me that I happen to run into again at where I work were like, yeah, he's great. Never had an issue with them. Yeah, so like I was saying, give it at least a year. Wait until bonuses get paid out, and wait until that happens. Also be mindful of the PTO policies where you get hired. So when you do get hired, look at your HR packet. Look at how they deal with PTO hours. Do they let you bank those hours so when you leave, you get to get them all paid out? Or do they do the thing where you can only get a set amount of hours? Because the last place I worked at, I knew for a fact I was probably going to be leaving. And they did a thing where even though you got 120 hours, I think it was, every year at the beginning of the year, you would only get paid out PTO for 40 hours. No. 80 hours. 80 hours, I think it was, or whatever. Anyway, but if you took any PTO off from the period of the beginning of the year to your final day working, they would deduct that from the pool of like 80 hours. So even though you had 120, you take one day off, you'd only get paid out for 72 instead of 80. It was really janky the way they did it. So keep in mind that, because when it comes to your exit plan, you're going to need to know, one, how often your job is paying. Of course, by that point, you should know your PTO payout, as well as bonuses being paid out. Plan to possibly leave around payout time of bonuses, as we discussed. And when you start your new job, find out their pay cycle. So, for example, when I left my last job, they were paying bi-monthly. Well, technically it's bi-weekly. It was every 2 weeks rather than twice a month, but most months it end up being twice a month, sometimes 3. You get it. Pay every 2 weeks, basically. And with that, I then moved over to my new job where they did it monthly. So I started the day that everyone had gotten paid. So for an entire cycle, I then had to rely on the money I got paid out from my final paycheck plus PTO, which worked out anyway to last up until my first paycheck from the new job. So these are the things you have to be mindful of when you're looking at job hopping. So it's not just the amount of time, it's the preparation for when you finally do the hop to make sure you aren't behind on any bills. It's very easy to fall behind pay periods. So like maybe you get paid this Friday, and then the Friday that you start, there happens to be a weird gap. So now you're waiting 2 weeks, 3 weeks potentially till you get your first paycheck. So yeah. That's some of my advice. Or you can social engineering. That's a big part of cybersecurity. Social engineering is one of the oldest, forms of hacking that predates technology as we know it. So, like, for example, I used to social engineer for free pizza. We've talked about it quite a bit on this channel. Win 10 or move to Win 11. I'm trying to avoid the integration of Microsoft AI into my personal life. Well, if you're needing to stay on Windows, go to Windows 11. If you don't need Windows, try Linux. You might be surprised. Can you get into cybersecurity without a degree, and which field do you recommend? Can you get a degree without a degree? Yeah. It's very hard, though, and you're going to start in through IT. One does not generally get into cybersecurity by starting in cybersecurity. They start through IT. Can you learn from home cybersec? Yeah. I've done a lot of my learning from home. Been in an MSP world for decades now. You get to touch all the things. Yeah, MSP is very, very helpful for how I learned a lot of the things that I have been able to do. They got upset that you can't rest on your successes. Well, they're way too sensitive. I don't know what this is in reference to, but yeah, there are people like that. The unfortunate reality, I will say this, as somebody that's, grown and become professionally successful in my own personal life, and then even if we're talking in terms of content, I would say reasonably successful. I have a massive TikTok following. I have a growing following across all different platforms. But the problem that you'll find is as you go on through your life, you may be getting rid of a lot of your friends in high school, even those people that you thought were going to be your best friends forever. Because the unfortunate reality is a lot of people are only situational friends. And there's quite a few people that are not going to be genuinely happy for your own successes to be there. There are very, very few friends you will ever come across in your life who are happy that you're happy that you are successful, and doesn't want to, treat that as like, let me get in a piece of that, let me get taken care of. They just want to see you succeed, and you end up finding that you lose friends along the way because you kind of see people as they mature and they grow up, and you see who they end up being as a person, and that's not always a great thing. So it is one of the unfortunate lessons you learn in growing up and dealing with the reality of life. Some people are not happy with their life, and misery loves company. Must learn what you've learned. Thanks for keeping it real with my question. My pleasure. I see tech topics are like a photon. You can try to slow it down, but the rest of this... Well, so... do you think AppSec is a solid field to pursue? Yeah, I think AppSec is a very strong field, especially now with all of this AI slop coming about, because you are going to need to know how to have secure pipelines to shift security, to shift code development left, as we say, so that security becomes the default setting, and that you're doing secure checks before things get shipped out. Because now that AI is becoming more prolific, and people are having easier access to it as a useful tool, that also means that people doing offensive security are going to have access to these same tools and are going to be popping software that has not properly vetted their architectures and design to begin with. So AppSec, I think, is going to be, in my opinion, one of the more growing parts of cybersecurity for the next few years, but that is in tandem with a good identity and access management team inside a company. So those are the two that I really see growing more and more, and they're also seen as, I guess you could say, kind of like they're kind of slept on, and people kind of overlook those two for some reason. At least in my experience. I mean, you can tell me differently. If you file single, you get taxed a TF out. Yeah. That's why, you find ways to help your tax burden. So that's why I have a financial planner to help me with things. And then I can do things like, so my content creation is all through, an LLC that I have. Which means everything that I expense through the LLC, even in this workspace, okay? Like even the coffee, I get to deduct that. So, like, for example, I'm going to Hamvention, B-Sides, in several different cities, DEF CON, GERCON, and all of these are actually getting paid by my LLC, but I'm doing it as a deduction. And before anyone gets upset, I'm not some rich multimillionaire here. I'm just a dude that is trying to afford his home lab, okay? Should I get a laptop with DDR5 RAM or keep my DDR4 laptop? Right now, the price of DDR5 is still very expensive, so if you can avoid it or you're getting it from one of the major vendors that they're not putting too much of a margin on it, it's okay. DDR4 is more expensive than it was, but it's still cost effective. I still only have one laptop, one device in the whole house that has DDR5 memory because of this crisis. You got laid off by that company or you quit? No, I quit my last job. I just got my CCNA with projects. Can I start applying for jobs? You could have started applying for jobs even before you had a CCNA. So the thing I don't understand is that why do people have this misconception that you can't start applying for jobs in technology until you get the certification or the degree? Because I didn't have the degree nor the certifications for over a decade. I'm now going in to get my bachelor's from WGU. And I've been in the field about 15 years, and I'm a senior security engineer right now. And all I have is a CISSP that I got 2 years ago as my first certificate. So I got the, A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, ITIL V4 only 2 months ago. About 2 years after the CISSP. So the point that I'm trying to get here isn't really to flex, it's to say you don't need to go finish school or a cert to start your career. You can work on your career in tandem while you're working on your academia. So, in fact, it'll save you a lot of growing pains, because if you start out and at least do something even part-time in tech while you're in school, you get over a lot of the growing pains quicker. Oh, dinner took longer to make than expected. Man, my dinner took about an hour and a half. I made a steak over the wood fire in my fire pit. And tonight we made it with some mushrooms and mixed veggies. Sounds great. Let's see. Who's responsible for users using VPNs? I don't know what you mean by that. Security through obscurity makes you an effing idiot. Yeah, pretty much. Well, it's a one-time defense. What's your opinion on this and how serious we should take? Take what? I don't know what you meant by how you worded that. What signs did you notice that the people around you really didn't want you to succeed, felt away? There would be a lot of demands. They would, be like, hey, can you help me out with this? There'd be kind of these little sly things with resentment. There would be these expectations that you're going to pick up the tab, you're going to buy dinner, and, things like that. Or they want to butt into your business quite a bit, and in ways they do it to kind of sabotage your successes. It's hard to say, like, for sure there's this, you know, guaranteed way to know when someone's doing that. It's more you notice patterns, and there's a gut feeling with it, and always trust your gut. Use Notebook L. I have not. Who are your customers? I work for a company. Is installing AI to your computer setup like with Olama safer than running it just on the website, like if you're using it to help create things and not have the API keys vulnerable? Yes. Olama, VLLM, things like that technically are more secure as well as private because you're running it locally on your machine, and that data doesn't go outside of your machine unless you directly want it to go outside and you're having it do something you basically told it to do. I'm not watching Kick. Yes, I am. I'll see you. Where's WG? It's a college. An online one. Do you recommend any video on install Parrot OS as the main OS? Installing operating system's pretty straightforward. Just put the USB drive with Parrot on it, boot off of Parrot OS, run through the installer. It's pretty much like every other Linux installation out there. It's pretty straightforward. You don't even really need a video. There's plenty of guides just to look up the documentation, because you'll honestly probably spend more time looking for the video than you will just going through the documentation and following along. You think you will learn from anything from WGU? Fuck no! I didn't learn anything from going to school for college the first time. All it is a goddamn fucking checkbox for HR. That's all it is. Keep seeing this video of GameStop buying out eBay. Yeah. What do you think about Mythos? I think that it might be just a good marketing stunt until we actually get it in our hands to actually prove that it's worthwhile. But alright, let's get into the review on stream section. So we have a video here from Logically Answered that I wanted us to look at, which is Adobe is finally getting what they deserve. Alright. I probably should have tested the audio before. I think I finally fixed that bug. We shall see. Hold on.
Front, left.
Yeah. So I did finally fix the issue, and it's on my GitHub for that script. But basically, every time these computers would detect there's a capture card, it would do stuff to automatically adjust the monitors, of course, because it sees the capture card as another monitor, so that it gets mirrored. But it wouldn't redo the handshake with the audio each time. So now I worked it in that anytime a capture card is detected, run that, sync. But here we go. So Adobe negative 68%.
Adobe finally got caught. They are now paying.
Did they get caught at a Coldplay concert?
$150 million. And I think you know why. But something even weirder is going on. Adobe...
No, I didn't lock in a Steam controller. I was talking about that earlier. Unfortunately, I really want to get the Steam controller. I want that. I definitely want to get that, whereas the Steam frame is more like a nice to have, whereas I want to move off an Xbox 360 controller. Apart from Pragmata, how often have you had to tinker around Proton to play something? Specifically with Proton? Maybe a handful of times. Like when Cyberpunk first came out, Oblivion Remastered, because the whole Unreal Engine was so unoptimized. We had to play around with so many different options. So I'd say that's a special edge case. I will, forgive, because Elder Scrolls has just had that history of always being buggy when they first come out. It's Bethesda. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. I barely have to touch it. How many controllers do you have? I personally have a few 8-bit branded controllers. I have this 360 one. There's an Xbox One controller upstairs from when I used to have an Xbox One. I have the original Valve Steam controller around here somewhere. I know it's around here because I have the dongle for it somewhere on my desk too. But I just didn't care for the original Valve Steam controller because it only had one thumbstick and I like two. But yeah. I recommend Copy.fail Plus or the OffSec Learn One course. Is it better to learn without a course? It's up to you. I generally haven't learned without any courses. I mean, I've generally learned without courses and just home labbed, but that's just me.
He has been making more.
Yeah, they're out of Steam controllers. Yeah, they sold out in 30 minutes.
More money than ever. Their revenue has nearly quintupled since 2015.
I'm betting that's when they announced subscriptions.
Has fallen 70% to an 8-year low.
Good! Fuck them!
Cap just dropped below 100 billion, and their CEO of 18 years just resigned. What happened? And
what happened is that the father of Adobe went out to go get milk and never came back.
And why is everyone betting against Adobe when they're making more money than ever?
Please teach us how to do actual steganography. Yeah, I can go over that sometime. I'd have to refresh myself on some of the tools first. It's been a while. It's a fun thing.
In creative software, Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere, Acrobat, there is no company that rivals their position. Graphic design, video editing, photography, audio mixing, anything creative. But maintaining...
Meanwhile, I do my streaming through OBS with the main recording done through OBS, editing with Kdenlive, using GIMP, Inkscape, and Canva. Because you know what? Fuck Adobe!
A monopoly takes more than great software, which brings us to CEO Shantanu Narayan. In 2013, Adobe was about to change everything, and Adobe had a very specific strategy for that.
Yeah, everything is a subscription these days, including my channels on all different platforms that you should be subscribing to. I'm sorry, I saw an opportunity and I took it.
Narayan pushed Adobe to move from boxed sales to the subscription model. Today, people buy experiences, not products. Their revenue began to soar as they added hundreds of millions to every quarter. And on the surface, this might seem like a win-win. Adobe products used to be pricey, around $700.
Yeah, I remember the big reason why a lot of people used to pirate Adobe, AutoCAD, and a bunch of other softwares is because they were prohibitively expensive, especially as a student. And you just couldn't afford these things. So it was not uncommon to know somebody who pirated Adobe products or AutoCAD or... hell, Adobe had, what was it, Dreamweaver and stuff like that, Flash players, things like that. And so you'd think a lot of the people that are going into the field need to use these tools. So they'd pirate it. And then some of them would at least, once they started making money, would go out and buy the legit versions. So when the Adobe subscription model first came out, we actually saw it as a relatively good thing. Oh, wow, these are several $100s usually. Now I can, easily, afford like $5, $10, $15 a month to be able to use my tools. Great. The problem with Adobe was the shisty ways that they went about doing this entire subscription system.
And the entire Creative Suite might be a few thousand. So, what was the problem? you save a lot of money subscribing each month, right? Well, for one, when you bought it, you owned that copy of Photoshop.
Right.
That $700 wasn't for a year of use. It was totally yours. You could also upgrade to the newest version for $200. You would pick up a physical disk in store, install it, and you were good to go. But that subscription of Adobe's wasn't actually saving you much money.
Yeah, and there's also an issue now where you have people that are on like the latest Creative Suite that still can't get the latest and greatest because now Adobe basically has forced you into using their Creative Cloud subscription model as far as I understand it. So that's been a problem.
Adobe didn't offer...
What password manager would you go with today? And decide for my HP. I go with Proton Pass. Disclaimer, I am affiliated with them, but I generally like them the most. They have aliasing and all that. I do have a link in my bio to them that helps support the channel. If you do happen to go above their free tier, they do have a free tier, and they have a paid for tier. But I use Proton Pass personally. Another solution is, of course, you have Bitwarden. Bitwarden's a great one that people like. Yeah, those are the two that I think would be good enough. I was stuck between Proton and 1Password, so you think Proton then? I'm not saying 1Password is bad, I just think Proton has better features. Particularly the thing they have, which is aliasing. So basically, you can create a different email for every single account, even if you're using Proton or not. So like say you're on Facebook, it has one email, and then you go over to like this random Shopify site, it has another one. If that random Shopify gets compromised, you now reduce your blast radius because they can't just go around spraying that username and password or whatever combo to the other ones. You have a unique username essentially for each service. There's not a lot of password managers that I know of that have the capability to do email aliasing like that. But again, 1Password, still great. I don't have any issue with 1Password.
Offer two options.
Yep, and like I said, there's a link in the bio under the product Brex, I think it is, or socials. Either way.
Like most subscription software. We're offered three: the monthly plan, most expensive, the annual plan, paid up front, and a third in the middle, right where your eyes go first.
And that effed so many people.
Except it's not monthly, it's annual, billed monthly. You are locked into a year-long plan, charged each month, and it gets worse.
Oh yeah.
To cancel, Adobe charged you 50% of every remaining month of your contract.
Right?
Why was someone who doesn't even want to pay for one more month supposed to pay for half?
I had friends that literally would set a calendar reminders to cancel their yearly plans because if they missed that window, it would auto renew it, and then yeah.
Of every month left. Some users were trapped the moment their 14-day free trial ended.
How private is self-hosted Matrix? It only sends external requests for push notifications. It's your own server. You control whatever infrastructure you have it built onto that. That's under, that's more about where it is. So if you have it hosted inside your house, in your firewall, in a whole other subnet, it can only access what you give it access to. But yeah, Matrix, really great private and secure system. Yeah. It only sends external requests for push notifications. If you're just using it to send push notifications, yeah, it's totally private. It won't connect to any other Matrix servers unless you start joining rooms in those servers, and other way is if your server is publicly discoverable.
You might be paying $20 a month, but canceling could cost $70. But it gets even worse. Many subscriptions allow you to turn off auto-renew so your plan will automatically cancel at the end. Adobe doesn't.
Yep.
You cannot disable your plan auto-renewing. The only way is to cancel the entire plan, which causes the massive cancellation fee.
This was one of the big reasons why when, like, some people were telling me early when I was trying to make content, like, yeah, you can use Adobe, but you're going to have to use a compatibility layer. And what made me, like, look at alternatives, and that's when I decided I'm going on the Kden Live and eventually DaVinci Resolve track and saying F Adobe entirely. Because this is just, like, horrible behavior. And my way is a lot cheaper, too.
It doesn't help that customer service was notoriously unreliable. If you go to the Adobe community website, Reddit, or any other creative forum, you'll see endless posts about cancellation fees. I've tried to cancel every month, and they still charge me. I tried to contact them directly, and the phones don't work. Tried to cancel through PayPal, and it doesn't work. Emailed them directly, they don't respond, and proceed to charge my account again. I'm trying to cancel my Adobe Acrobat Pro, but I can't afford the termination fee. Adobe doubled my plan, then hit me with a $200 cancellation fee.
Jeez!
Freaking out right now. The only reliable way to avoid it from what I've seen was to just cancel your card.
Yeah, I know a few people that literally had to cancel their credit card for that reason.
Already canceled. Customers hated Adobe, yet it felt like
Hulu is the same, you have to cancel your whole account. Really? Because at least with, like, Paramount Plus, because, like, I don't see the point in paying full price for that, I can cancel it and then come back whenever. But generally what I end up doing is I go to cancel it, and then it gives me the, we'll give you 2 months for 99 cents, and I'm like, bet. Because they ain't worth 14 bucks.
there was
I only watch you for my NCIS.
no alternatives for most of their products. Even if you could find an alternative, if you worked in design, marketing, or a creative field, your employer likely wanted you to use Adobe.
How funny would it be if this image was an AI rendered image of the person going through looking at AI image generators? And then would that be AI inception? I don't know. Disney, Hulu, Black Friday, $5 a month on HBO, $2 a month and Paramount free through Walmart Plus and Netflix free. You cannot pay me to get a Walmart account and hand over my information to them. In fact, a big reason I don't use Walmart, among all the other ethical reasons people have against Walmart, is I like to use Apple Pay with my watch, because I don't want to grab my wallet, and Apple Pay adds an extra layer of security. Walmart famously does not support Apple Pay. That's why I like Canva. It's more user-friendly. Yeah, I use Canva.
It's what everyone else was using, and they were already subscribed to Creative Cloud, which brings us back to CEO Shantanu Narayan, and a weird twist in this story. Narayan has consistently been ranked as one of the best CEOs to work for. He was literally number 1 in 2021, number 3 in 2025, and is in the top 5 of Comparably with an A+ or 93 out of 100.
So Adobe gonna go to shit.
Great to customers, he took care of employees and shareholders extremely well. Nonetheless, Adobe was the
Good luck learning GIMP. That UI and UX has a user curve. So somebody actually released a project, I think they call it GIMP Shop or something like that. Basically, it's reskinning the entire GIMP to look like Photoshop, and some extensions and stuff there too. So you get, like, basically the same experience from my understanding is. Don't quote me on that, because I'm not a Photoshop user, but yeah.
more money than ever today. But not the only reason. Soon, they'd have to answer for their crimes. The endless complaints were adding up, and they'd caught the attention of someone much bigger. But in the meantime, Adobe had other matters to
CEO be like, I don't know, bish!
attend to. They were about to drop billions in a fight to keep their monopoly.
Oh, really? $150 million.
Many fees and costs of business are hugely confusing. Yet, what can be even more confusing?
Yeah, I can skip this sponsor. Do you see how much of a chunk that was? Like, that's 5 minutes and 30 seconds to... That's roughly 2 minutes for a damn ad.
Adobe announced it was acquiring Figma for $20 billion. Why Figma? Well, Figma had something rare. Real-time collaboration.
So Figma, there's an interesting story, because the first time I learned about Figma a few years ago was I was trying to help one of my friends that's a graphic designer and, find a job. And I kept looking at all these different job postings, and I'm like, all of them are basically mentioning this tool called Figma. Do you know Figma? And they're like, no, I don't. And I'm like, you should probably learn Figma then. And they're like, but I only know, the Adobe suite and everything. And I'm like, tools change all the time. You have to learn what's the new thing. And this is the thing that keeps popping up. That was 5 years ago, when Figma was on the up and coming. Now, as a graphic designer, from what I've heard, if you don't have Figma experience, it's very tough to get a job right now, because almost no one is using Photoshop in those ways anymore. They may, use like Photoshop and other tools too, but they're mostly using Figma, and Figma now has an MCP, so now you're having to learn to prompt with it and all of this stuff, but yeah.
Lightweight?
Tried the new DaVinci photo editing features. How close is it to Lightroom is it? Oh, that's interesting. Didn't know they had that. I'm eventually going to pay for DaVinci Studio, but I'd have to pay for 2 licenses because I need one for me and one for my editor.
Browser-based, no install required. Plus, a very generous free
Or
tier
the mod that does my editing.
impressive hidden fees. It was the most credible threat to Adobe's design dominance in years, and it was growing fast. Users had watched Adobe acquire their favorite tools over the years and slowly watched them change.
Yeah, Adobe was like Figma was eating Adobe's lunch. I remember there was a period in time when I was telling people, like, hey, you don't even need to learn Adobe stuff anymore, just focus on Figma, because that's what everyone was talking about at the time.
Or disappear altogether. In 2005, Adobe acquired the design tool Freehand, then slowly killed development and shut it down. Why? It was a competitor to Illustrator. Then, when users got mad, they said, while we recognize Freehand has a loyal customer base, we encourage users to migrate to the new Adobe Illustrator. So, fans of Figma knew exactly what was coming. But this time, it didn't go as planned. Out of nowhere, Adobe abandoned the acquisition.
Wait.
They had run into some trouble. Previous Adobe acquisitions had...
They scrapped it? I thought they went through with it. Adobe Figma acquisition. Ah! I've been out of touch for a little while. Okay, so that's actually a good thing. I thought that they had been acquired. I guess I was out of the loop on that. And Adobe had to pay a $1 billion cash termination fee. Oy. So Figma came out the winner.
That mostly passed unnoticed. But this was big. 20 billion. So it stretched across the US and Europe. The UK's Competition and Markets Authority opened an in-depth investigation, publishing a provisional finding of competition concerns. They said it would harm innovation for software used by the vast majority of UK digital designers. The European Commission followed in November 2023 with similar concerns. So, Adobe and Figma walked away on...
How ironic, a termination fee. Oh yeah, I didn't even pick up on that. The ultimate irony of Adobe had a termination fee because they couldn't complete their deal of $1 billion to Figma, the company that was charging termination fees to people wanting to end their services early.
Though this meant Adobe had to pay a reverse breakup fee, aka a fee in mergers to protect the smaller company, in this case Figma. But for Adobe, this was $1 billion.
Ouch.
That's right. Adobe had to pay a $1 billion cancellation fee themselves. You'll love to see it. More than the financial hit, it was a huge threat to Adobe's monopoly. They had literally handed $1 billion to their biggest competitor.
Right.
But that wasn't even the biggest problem. While the Figma deal was collapsing, the FTC had been building a case. Then they filed a lawsuit. Adobe fails to adequately disclose to consumers that by signing up for the annual paid monthly subscription plan, they are agreeing to a year-long commitment and a hefty early termination fee that can amount to hundreds of dollars. They also said Adobe's early termination fee disclosures are buried on the company's website in small print or require consumers to hover over small icons.
Oh yeah, it's so shisty how they hide it.
Problems with the ETF. The company continues its practice of steering consumers to the annual paid monthly plan while obscuring the ETF. Adobe naturally disagreed, amongst
Of course. We disagree that we aren't, hiding how you
Adobe finally
charge and cancel.
settled for $150 million, $75 million in penalties, and $75 million in free services for the customers they wronged. They also agreed to disclose subscription terms upfront, the thing they'd been hiding all along. Of course, they didn't admit to any wrongdoing as expected in a settlement case.
Yep.
After the verdict, Shantanu Narayan resigned, and he'll step down when a successor is found. The one who pushed for the subscription model after 18 years was leaving. So is Adobe's reign finally over?
No. Probably not. The new CEO is going to come in and make it like 10 times worse. Because the problem is, anytime you get new C-suite in, it's never like, oh, we're just going to, keep the course, do what's been successful and all that. They always have to come in, shake things up, and make their mark. It doesn't matter if it's a CISO, a CIO, a CEO, a CFO. They all come in and basically swing their big dicks around and then just start like a bull in the china shop wrecking things. And it's never the same company.
Not exactly.
For the employees, especially underneath them.
Continue with these fees, but make them clearer and less hidden. And Adobe is making serious money, like stupid money. $6.4 billion in revenue in Q1 2026, up 12% from the same quarter the year before. Operating income was $2.42 billion.
What's up, Tristan?
Net income $1.89 billion. Adobe's revenue has nearly quintupled since 2015. But take a look at this.
Oh yeah, because you had the SaaS revolution.
More money, and its stock keeps falling. Right now, it's the lowest it's been in 8 years. They're no longer a $100 billion company, and as of me writing this, they have a PE ratio of about 14. High margin, high growth software companies are usually multiple times higher than that, and Adobe's has been falling for a long time. In fact, every time I check it while writing,
I think it has to do with public perception.
revenue up, earnings up, but the amount investors are willing to pay for those earnings is falling. What the heck is going on? Is it the lawsuit? Losing Figma? Partially, but there's something else. Ironically, one of Adobe's biggest bets is exactly what's got investors worried.
Okay. Oh no, stock woes.
They come from Adobe. And if you like stories like this, please subscribe. It helps a ton, and we don't have hidden subscription fees like Adobe does. Speaking of which, Adobe has two money engines right now. The first, digital media.
Right.
Basically, Creative Cloud apps, Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere, but also Document Cloud, which is basically Acrobat and PDF workflows. PDFs are everywhere. That part of the business isn't going anywhere. In Q1 2026, digital media brought in
I don't even think Adobe is who made the PDF.
$1 billion the same quarter last year. Document Cloud alone hit $843 million, up 17%.
Oh, it actually was in 1992. Interesting.
Year over year. That's huge, but it's not even the whole picture. The second is digital experience, Adobe's marketing and enterprise arm. Analytics, commerce, customer data tools. In Q1 2026, that segment did $1.41 billion.
All right.
$1.33 billion the year before.
Still a nice little growth.
It's making more money than ever from more places than ever. So why is their stock falling? Losing Figma hurt Adobe in ways that a $1 billion fee doesn't fully capture. The deal was supposed to be Adobe's move into collaborative design and product workflows, a space they didn't dominate yet. Walking away didn't just cost $1 billion. It literally funded their biggest competitor.
Yeah. That makes sense. They don't really have collaborative tools now that I come to think of it.
It's much bigger than just Figma. Both Adobe and Figma are utilizing the same thing, AI. In March 2023, Adobe launched Adobe Firefly, its family of generative AI models,
Right.
directly into Creative Cloud. Type a prompt, generate an image. Text to image, text to video, generative fill in Photoshop. Within a year of its beta launch, users have generated over 13 billion images with Firefly. 13 billion. Adobe even built a whole monetization layer around it. In other words, Adobe had moved from selling software to selling AI outputs. This might sound good, but this was a huge problem. Not only were there huge
I think I might be seeing this during graphic design.
used as
Well, yeah, then it's timely.
but also requiring many users to grant them full access to users' local content. And most bafflingly of all, they included that they had a non-exclusive
AI makes PDFs. Do they license it for Acrobat? No, I think that's a little bit different. Hold on. Actually, if I'll look into this while we.
worldwide, royalty-free, sub-licensable license to use, reproduce, publicly display, and much more.
Access to your content. We may access, view, or
Oh, okay. So Adobe created the PDF format. They, however, opened the specification to the public, allowing free usage of the standard. So they opened up the file format for anyone to use. They just first required you to use Adobe Acrobat, Reader, and all that stuff. And then other people made their own interpretations, like we had like Fox Reader or something like that. There's so many different ones like Nitro and all those over the years.
listen to your content through both automated and manual methods. And then down here it says our automated systems may analyze your content in Creative Cloud customer fonts, which are defined over there, using techniques such as machine learning in order to improve our services and software and the user experience.
This was especially bad for users and companies who use NDAs to protect their work, like those working in the
Oh no, I didn't even think about that.
was immense, and Adobe quickly backpedaled on it. But Adobe had created bigger problems for themselves. Investors are increasingly worried that generative AI won't strengthen Adobe's competitive advantage, but do the opposite. Analysts are concerned AI tools are directly challenging Adobe's traditional software model, and that rivals like Canva and Figma are moving fast, building AI.
You know, I actually can understand that because I've even been using AI to at least create some images, if not the base ideas around certain assets in my photos. So yeah, it totally makes sense. And Canva has been a lot easier to work with than Adobe Photoshop, whatever it was for me.
AI features directly into their products. The market already viewed Adobe as on the wrong side of the early AI winners and losers, and the CEO stepping down without a clear succession plan has simply deepened that skepticism. Adobe's moat was their massive portfolio, deep integrated workflows, those insanely packed tools on top of tools. Switching from Creative Cloud, especially in a business, was quite hard.
Oh yeah.
With such a big push into AI and design getting faster and cheaper because of AI, Adobe's competitive advantage is shrinking.
Yep.
Competitors now have an easy comparison point to them. No matter what Adobe does, they can't seem to escape the pressure. AI, Figma, subscription fees, granted, it's all their fault. Though, to be fair, Figma is feeling it too after their IPO. But it feels like Adobe's tight grip might be loosening. Justice has come at last for Adobe. They're not the only ones experiencing AI woes either. Microsoft is, weirdly enough,
Microslop, I will have you know.
Microsoft's market cap dropped $500 billion in a single week after they announced more AI spend. Check out this video to learn more, but until then, I'm Hari.
Okay, that was a great little video, catching up on what Adobe's been up to. So this was something that was shared to me a while ago. Natalie Valk, a Valve Linux graphics contractor, has open source kernel patches that use Linux DMEM C groups to protect foreground games, background apps, and overlays now spelled to system RAM first, instead of evicting the game's critical VRAM assets. In real testing with Cyberpunk 2077 on high settings, this resulted in stable frame times with 0 gradual stutters, keeping around 7.4 gigabytes in fast VRAM. So basically, it could make affordable SteamOS gaming far more viable than the specs alone suggest. Valve to make 8 gigabytes enough in 2026 with optimizations like this. So, Valve is proving once again why Linux is slowly going to be taking over the Windows market. There's not really a way Microsoft can compete with the sheer number of developers that Linux as a whole has been able to muster, and most of them are doing it for free. Or they're working on behalf of other companies like Valve to enhance the Linux project. As we know, Microsoft can't even get, what was it, the Asus ROG Ally X, the handheld they had? That device notoriously performs poorly when it comes to running Windows, and you can run the same games on the Asus ROG Ally X in Windows 11 and then run it on SteamOS, and the SteamOS version will noticeably run better. And this isn't me saying that. This has been objectively stated by so many different reviewers, and it's just really interesting how Microsoft is, bloating it even more with more AI crap. Valve is over here trying to figure out how to enhance it. We've already had major news where we had the NT-Sync improvements. We had several different Linux improvements just in the Linux kernel over the past year. Just there. Now we have this happening at the same time, which could very likely, in this memory crisis, make it that 8 gigabytes of RAM, at least on Linux, could be enough, especially for VRAM. Because the big issue a lot of people are having with gaming is they want to, move to bigger resolutions, and you need to, even with Pragmata, we were using close to 11 gigabytes of VRAM running at 1440p with all the textures maxed out and everything. And NVIDIA's trying to sell us on 8 gigabyte VRAM cards again. And a lot of people understandably are saying we need to go to 16 gigabyte VRAM to future-proof a bit. Even the Intel Arc B65, which was just announced, and the B70 that was just released, they come with 32 gigabytes of VRAM. So, also on that point, can we talk about the fact that games in the 2010s, many of them look as good, if not better, than the games that we have today, but somehow use way less resources. Like Wolfenstein, the new Colossus, play that game, look at the graphics, then look at how old that game is. Or is it the New Order? Either one. One of them was made I think 2015. But yeah. We'll never understand how companies worth billions suddenly unlearn how to do their jobs. Yeah, it is definitely interesting to say the least. Alright, let's see. What's up, for Strix? Alright. Next thing we have is HBX had a TikTok they wanted me to look at. If we can get it to load. From username instead. I think I saw this video. Hold up. Is this the person that makes it into a Meshtastic node by going to the garden supplies?
$9 solar light and turn it into an off-grid communication device.
Yep, Meshtastic.
It uses a mesh network, which is basically a way to send messages without the need for Wi-Fi or cell service. I ripped out the original electronics, added a LoRa radio and microcontroller.
So, while I admire that she's doing this project, I just have a question.
The battery and reuse the solar panel for charging.
Okay, so she got the light from, a garden light that uses the solar panel to do the charging for the device, and then, there's a step down, I think, in there and all that.
It runs and stays charged with solar. You can run these anywhere and create your own network. This is how you build communication without infrastructure.
So here's my problem. So you're trying to create communication without infrastructure, and I admire that. I am not by any means a naysayer when it comes to Meshtastic. I mean, this is my LilyGo T-Echo Plus that I've been tinkering with. This is the Echo that I was playing with originally. Then you have somewhere around here is the T-Deck, and then you have the T1000 over here. I got some more that are actually in the mailbox as well. Needless to say, I'm not poo-pooing the technology or anything. My question is more about her application and execution. So we saw, if you look at the video,
This is $9.
how can I scrub this? TikTok, you need to really improve your UI.
Spliced into the
Okay, so
solar panel. And stays charged with solar. You can run the
okay, so she's connecting to it over Bluetooth. Bluetooth on average is about 30 feet, right? So you're connecting to that device. Great. You're putting it on a solar light, which is going to be on the ground. That's the worst place to be putting your antenna. So if you're putting it out there to be a repeater for the connections inside your house in the same way as the solar node that I run on my fence post, so I'm doing the exact same idea basically. The difference is that I'm not running mine on the ground. I'm running it, it's about like 15 feet in the air. Because you want your radio propagation device, your antenna, you ideally want your antenna as high an elevation as possible. So this doesn't make sense to, do the node in that way because it's lower to the ground. And unless you're doing HF high frequency, which shoots up and then bounces down, that's a whole different thing. I wouldn't really suggest this. And I saw that, she's using Bluetooth to connect to the device, and it's like, yeah, you could make the argument of she's maybe going to be using this for her node for her to connect in and message out of it. But at that point, it'd be like, this is the least convenient node that you would have because you'd want either a card like this or even a little, device like that, or the thicker version over here, or, even a dedicated device, because you want to communicate out of that. And obviously, she's not going to carry that with her. And that's the idea. So I'm more curious why she went with that method. And maybe there's something else that she's, not explaining here that goes into her setup, or what I suspect is actually happening, and this is why I tell people all the time that I believe that amateur radio and understanding the art and science of radio should be a required part of learning when it comes to people that are in IT and cybersecurity, especially when you want to start dealing with Wi-Fi. Because it literally is dealing with radio. And there's a lot of people that I run into that not only maybe don't know networking, but they don't know jack when it comes to wireless radio communications, even with the access points that they're marking up. Like, I know a lot of people that if they don't have one of those Ekahau or whatever, wireless survey devices to help them, plot where to put the access points, they're pretty much useless at, it's a little bit harsh, but they're pretty much useless at diagnosing a lot of those situations that someone with just a little bit of know-how and understanding the art and science of radio can do without these very expensive and, don't get me wrong, very nice tools. But yeah, this is, just my initial thoughts when it came to this is that I'm not understanding where she's trying to tackle this. Because if I were telling someone to get a solar node, I wouldn't say to go this route. What I would tell them to do is go get some. There are kits out there. So like, what is it? The Seed Studio with 3 E's. SenseCap Solar P1 is what I'm using. It's a relatively inexpensive set. Or you can go and build your own and then get a rack wireless board, anything like that. But regardless, you're going to want a weatherproof enclosure, and you're going to want it as high up as possible. And if you're setting it up to be a repeater, it may not necessarily be a bad idea to disable Bluetooth for a battery preserving situation. So what I'm going to be doing is when I need to upgrade my Meshtastic device, which I have to do this year, the firmware, I'm going to actually get on a ladder and plug it into USB and do it over that. But, yeah. Needless to say, we can go on a rant about radio and how all of that, because as you know, amateur radio operator. That's partially why a lot of you follow me. What's never heard of Meshtastic? So Meshtastic is a decentralized, federated mesh off-the-grid communication system. So these devices that I was all showing here, these all operate. All 4 of these devices in my hand. These all operate without cell phone and without Wi-Fi. Though, this one down here technically can connect to Wi-Fi. You can either use them as standalone devices like this Meshtastic over here, where it's like a BlackBerry and I can message over here. Or with these guys, you connect to your phone or such over Bluetooth, and then you're able to connect to anybody. Now, these devices are not that powerful. If I remember, the power output is not even like 100 milliwatts or so. I could be wrong. I don't remember when I measured these last. But you can do up to 1 watt. But anyway, this guy's stock here can do about 3 to 5 miles on average. Just this little guy here. And with GPS on in this device, the battery will last 5.5 days. If you turn the GPS off, I got close to 11 days on this. The very power efficient, very great for emergency comms because you can send messages over them. They use the LoRa ISM band, which in the USA is 915 megahertz, 902 to 928 megahertz specifically. And in Europe, they use 868 megahertz. That's the center frequency. I don't know the band that EU has for that. So with Meshtastic, basically, I have the ability to communicate with people offline. When I'm at DEF CON, a lot of people use these. We had like 2,000 people in Vegas all using Meshtastic to communicate with each other. Now, my solar node that I have upstairs on the fence, that one, I've been told by friends, they've been able to reach 15, maybe even 20 miles away. I can't remember what the exact number was. Somewhere between 15 and 20. But as far as, like, your question, like, how far can radio waves go? Well, my ham shack over here, the VHF-UHF, the very high-frequency, ultra-high-frequency setup, can go about, I think it's close to 100 miles, or at least 70. Yeah. I think that's the furthest that we've gotten hitting a repeater and talking with one of my friends. And then the HF side, so far I've gotten out to Maine and parts of Canada. And I haven't fully optimized my setup.
4 strict.
Yep, thank you for the follow. Radio chat room. I mean, that's basically a good way to put it. Oh, and that mesh with Meshtastic, the way it works is it's not just one hop. So if somebody is like within 3 to 5 miles, then I can talk to only that person. No, it's by default 3 hops. So it's anyone within 3 hops of me, I can talk to unless I increase or lower that. Like some people will increase that to like 10 hops. So imagine now I have these 3 devices here. All right. And let's say there's, well, we have the 4th one here. So let's say I send a message from this guy. Well, it blasts it out, and all of the devices around them pick it up and then relay them. Even if they're encrypted messages, it passes them along in an encrypted form. And then it will then, be able to broadcast out to this node over here. And then this node over here could then rebroadcast that out to this guy. So let's say the TDEC is the intended recipient of the T echo. It can actually relay through all of these and make the connection however it needs to go to the end target, so long as it matches the specs for like how many hops and signal strength and things like that. But yeah. Meshtastic, really great technology to know, especially in an emergency state. I use the SenseCap. These I use with my dogs for when they go hiking. They have GPS in here, and as long as I'm within like 3 to 5 miles of my dogs, if they get off leash, I can then track them down by seeing them with my other Meshtastic over here. So I have new ones coming in that have a little bit more better battery, but are using the same chip as this guy. So, those will be for my dogs. Alright. I actually didn't know radio wops don't just stop, they get weaker. Oh yeah, they don't just stop, but they also can reflect. So you can actually, at certain spectrums, hit the atmosphere at certain stages and it will bounce back down. So, like, when you're dealing with HF radio, the longest one hop can go is 2,500 miles. But then that can go again, bounce, lose some strength, go back up, bounce, and then that's how radio signals travel the world. Now, VHF, UHF are more line of sight, but there is ways you can also directionally point them with like a Pringles can or something like that to be unidirectional, and there's ways you can bounce them off of buildings. Friends of mine have bounced messages off the International Space Station as well as the moon. There's a way you can bounce it off the moon to actually prove that we've been on the moon. I don't know the specifics about that, but yeah. Yeah, and it's very inexpensive to get into. Like, the most expensive Meshtastic units I see are like $200-$300 units, but those are like the base stations with all the weather sensors and everything you're not going to care about. I think this guy was like 60. This is my daily, the LilyGo T Echo Plus. This cost me like, I think 60 or 70. These sense caps cost me about $40. I think this one cost me about $100. So yeah, it's a really inexpensive hobby. So how does the chatting part work? You can either connect on the device or you use the Meshtastic app on your Android or iOS, and you can also do it through the web browser too. And then you just chat through it. And by default, it'll have an unencrypted chat room. Well, it is encrypted technically, but it's not really. And then you can find other rooms. Chances are, if you look up in your area, like just like do like say like Detroit Meshtastic, you'll find our user groups for a lot of this stuff that can help you learn more about your area and stuff. You can also do internet over LoRa. Yep, LoRaWAN. Yeah, you can do Wi-Fi over an entire, like, I think, what do they say, 3 mile? Get 6 megabit per second. So it's basically a localized chat room. It's not really a localized chat room. It's more of a federated chat room of anyone who can hear you and wants to talk with you. I'm going to use Rnode, which I've seen chat with Meshtastic and Meshcore. Huh. I wanted to play with Meshcore. There's not enough people using it around me. I looked into it. And R-Node support internet too. R-Node, is that Reticulum or am I thinking of something different? But anyway, here we go. Jeff Geerling's got the new Framework ARM laptop. I mean, it's kind of interesting. I do want to get the Framework laptop to have the RISC-V in it because I want to play with it. I don't know how I feel about ARM in a laptop per se. Like, it's like, ooh, ARM CPU, woo. It's like, it's giving me the same amount of enthusiasm as, oh, we have an Intel or AMD laptop over here. That's kind of like the same level of enthusiasm. It's just like, okay, you're doing the same thing as everyone else. Whereas RISC-V, I'm like, that's new. I know it's a developer thing, but I digress. Okay.
This is probably the only laptop on
We may only watch a part of this. I'm just curious to see his initial notes, but yeah.
Earth that's run RISC-V, x86, and will soon be running on an ARM mainboard. This is a new mainboard from Meta Computing that has the 6P6160, something like that. I forget what the exact chip name is. But this mainboard is brand new.
Okay, so this...
Meta Computing's new board for the Framework 13 with 4 USB-C ports that all support power input and HDMI output.
Okay, so this is not a Framework official ARM board. Kind of interesting somebody would go about making this. Curious the reasoning why, but okay.
It should allow me to upgrade this laptop, a Framework 13, and move from an AMD CPU to an ARM CPU. And the big question I have, which hopefully we'll answer by the end of this video, is whether this chip and this board solve the big issue that I've had with these ARM chips on other systems, like the Minisform MSR1. We'll see. Let's tear this laptop down and take out the AMD mainboard that I have in it right now. And to start, we'll see how quickly I can do this. You take out these little guys.
Eventually I'll get around to getting a Framework laptop just to see what the hype is about.
Comes with the laptop.
I just can't justify the expense.
Screws.
I'm still trying to get around to making some other content.
Just yank the keyboard off. Luckily, no harm, no foul, but that's... I might have to buy a new top board at some point if I do that again.
Okay. It is impressive how easy they are to, like, upgrade, replace. Especially knowing how horrible laptops were back in the day. Wait, why did he need a screw?
All right. Well, 10 minutes for a complete mainboard replacement is not that bad. And I'm going to see if this boots up now. The SSD that I put inside, that one I already pre-flashed with Meta Computing's image of, I think it's Ubuntu 2504 or 25, I think it might be. I don't know. Right now, because of the way that this chip works, you can run other OSs on it, but it requires some extra firmware support. But anyway,
It's probably too new. That's not built into the kernel right now.
Actually, it's been about 3 or 4 weeks since last time I turned this laptop on. But the light's on. Let's see if we get it. There it is. So Tiana Core EDK2 firmware, version beta 2. So if we boot this up, the OS distro that comes with this, it's Linux. It's Ubuntu 2504, which is about a year old now. And it's
Wouldn't that be out of support too?
6.6, which is the
Pretty old.
release, but it's not using 6.12 or 6.13. I don't remember exactly what kernel ships with 2504 by default, but that's because there are still a few things with the 6P1 chip in here that don't quite work out of the box. But you can see that this booted up.
So this is one of the issues I've been having with like ARM CPUs versus RISC. Is that RISC, because of the nature that it's fully open source, they seem to build more right into the Linux kernel. Whereas like with the ARM CPUs, there's always like some weird quirk. There's some weird gimmick with, you know, dealing with it that you need to have this like customized version of the OS. Whereas you don't need to do that on x86 types. Like, you can go from one ARM to another ARM, and it's just annoying. But yeah.
Pretty quickly, we're in already, and all the controls on here work. There's volume, there's, I guess, the screen mirroring, and there's play, pause. All the buttons for the framework stuff work fine. And using this generally is fine. There's no issues here. If I go to my website, I can browse and it's very fast. I can go in here, go to a YouTube video. You might think picking the best laptop Apple ever made is a... Let's pause that there.
With all your tech stuff and lights, what's your light bill looking like? It's actually not that much. I think last month I paid about like $240 for the whole house. My tech stuff, like, I think if we don't count the desktops and all that, because they're on their own thing, but the whole home lab is only using about like 200 or so watts right now.
Everything on here works like a typical computer would. It has 12 cores, so it's not going to be a slouch doing almost anything that it needs to do. And just general computer use has been great. No problems there. You can use Writer and spreadsheets.
I mean, yeah, it's an ARM CPU, so...
Any issues there. But after I get this up, we'll go through some of my benchmarks. I run a full suite of benchmarks on every computer I test, and this one does really well in some places, and it does a little surprising in other places. So just looking at Geekbench scores, Geekbench is not the best benchmark in the world, but it works here, and it just shows us that the chip is behaving pretty much within spec. It's between the Swarm MSR1 and the Radso Orion 06, which both use the same chip, maybe a slightly different revision of the chip, but you know, it's performing as expected. That's the main thing for small workloads. When I run HPL, which does a floating point 64 double precision task on it and all the memory, I think there's two things that are going on. One is the memory bandwidth on this chip is a little bit less than on the other two systems.
Yeah, no shit.
I don't know why, because the performance of the memory seems okay otherwise. But for some reason, the memory is a little bit slower on here, but it shouldn't.
Maybe a firmware bug?
I don't know exactly what's happening here because
It's got 32 gigabytes of memory there. Oh, wait, no, it's got 16 gigabytes of RAM, but a 32 gigabyte eMMC. And it's got 6,000 megahertz. Yeah, it's interesting.
Check in the BIOS that all the settings are right for performance mode. So something's funny there. I don't know what, but that should be
Might be a driver issue.
That partly causes this
Could be firmware
to be much worse on this chip for this particular test. Now, for Geekbench, the efficiency is...
Yeah, there could be some optimizations.
Tasks, it'll be right in line with the other 6 P1 chip systems. But I just wanted to call that out because that was a little bit of strange behavior, and I think the
could be a memory controller issue. Could be.
Probably a BIOS setting. But the thing that I did enjoy a lot about the system is it actually has relatively decent power draw versus the other two at idle. And that's something that I think Metacomputing is focusing on in their BIOS to make it run idle a little bit lower so you get more battery life. It's still not amazing though. And we'll get to that in a little bit later in this video when we compare it to other systems like the AMD mainboard and Apple's MacBook Neo. Before we get to those comparisons, though, I wanted to test the graphics performance on here for a couple reasons. First of all, I ran Gravity Mark, which tests the iGPU very hard and sees how much performance you can get out of it ideally. This has a Mali G720 Immortalis GPU that's from ARM directly, and it has okay driver support. You can get Vulkan and OpenGL running, and because of that...
Still at 720p, it's not too bad for an iGPU.
Through FEX or through Box86 and Box64, so I wanted to test that. Now, this Gravity Mark score is actually going to be similar to like an A14, so a couple generations of Apple mobile chip, or Intel's
not too bad,
like in the N150 and N100 PCs. So I got FEX running on here, and I installed Steam. There were a couple little tricks to it.
Video didn't seem to be stuttering, but their video definitely was stuttering.
It wasn't actually that hard. I used a guide from Ubuntu's wiki. I downloaded games on Steam.
Oh yeah, my stream should be doing fine.
Wi-Fi, so that was nice, but it was also using the whole CPU while it was doing that. That's just how it is with Steam downloads. But the first game that I tried out was a pretty lightweight older game, Horizon Chase Turbo. And
oh God!
for the first try because it's pretty light on resources and usually runs fairly well if you have enough iGPU support. And it's not quite a slideshow here, but I wouldn't call this playable.
Jeez.
It worked fine, and the controls were fine, the sound was great, but that's about all I can say for it here. This is all the lowest quality settings, and I think for some reason the iGPU is not passing through and working correctly in this environment. And that could be a FX issue, that could be something with the drivers on here. I'm not 100% sure. Next up, I tried Portal 2, and again, it works, but it also stuttered quite a bit. It actually was not very playable. With Horizon Chase Turbo, I could at least finish a race, but in the rooms in Portal 2, it was a challenge to even enter the test chamber because there was a lot of skipping and pausing and
Yeah, I have a feeling that Valve still needs to optimize the ARM side of it.
I tried testing Abduction, which is also a little bit of an older game, so usually it runs pretty decent on newer systems, even if they're through emulation. But it quit out after the splash screen, and I'm not 100% sure why. But maybe it was the same thing as happened with Doom Eternal, because it got pretty close to launching, but I guess with the 16 gigs of RAM on my board, it ran out of memory, and
Yeah,
is shared between the GPU and the CPU.
that'll
The
happen.
laptop locked up at this point, and I had to shut it down. So if you're buying something for gaming, definitely this is not the board for that. It's not even made for that. So I just wanted to see how it would run because I know people.
I don't think anyone's really advertising any of their ARM products as gaming products.
Translated from x86 to ARM through FEX. What about Windows on ARM natively? I mean, it should work, right? Well, the first step was I upgraded the BIOS to the latest version that was provided by Metacomputing, and then I went into settings and booted off this Windows USB install drive that I made with Rufus. And the first time I tried, it hit an NTFS driver bug, and apparently that's because I had an older version of Rufus that I made the USB install disk with. So I reflashed the Windows install using the latest version of Rufus, and it got further, but then I ran into this screen with a phase 0 exception. That basically means
the
that I
hell?
ran into an issue trying to initialize hardware. I talked to Metacomputing about it, and their first suggestion was to disable 4 CPU cores, so I tried that. That's actually the same trick that I think Orion 06 from Radsa used to make their system-ready image, but that setting wouldn't stick for me, and so I couldn't get it to boot that way either. So they got back to me again and said, you can try putting it into work mode instead of performance. And I guess, if you're going to use Windows, it is a lot of work to use Windows instead of Linux. But anyway, setting that, it actually did stick. And so I popped my Windows install USB back in, and what do you know, it actually started installing. But for some reason, midway
That's a
through
lot
that
of
install, it
jumps.
rebooted, and I couldn't get it to work again and recognize the NVMe drive. So I don't know if it was an issue with the drive or with something in the BIOS or with something in the Windows install, but you know what? I'm going to put
I have an ARM 64, it can't play Borderlands 3.
Yet. It will be at some point.
Well, yeah.
Install Windows on here, but
ARM is still hit or miss for a lot of that.
we're going to run.
I mean, emulation is not a simple thing to do.
Why is this called an AI PC? What does that even mean? I think the main thing is that just means it has a built-in NPU or neural processing unit that might speed up things like running LLMs or machine vision. The NPU built into the P1 is rated for 30 tops int 8, which is fine.
Something's wrong with the video capture? No, the computer just had a Windows update that's running the stream.
Metacomputing doesn't have any specific documentation, but Rad's
The rule of thumb is if there's an issue on this stream, 99% of the time, it's the Windows computer having issues.
Even though this has the best idle power draw I've seen on a system using 6's P1 chip, and even though it's a decent ARM board, the MacBook Neo exists now. On top of that, the cheapest AMD mainboard also exists. The Neo is way cheaper than both of those, but the AMD mainboard is about the same cost once you take into account memory pricing.
Yeah.
Neo and the AMD are faster, and assuming you want Linux, the AMD board is compatible with more software too. The biggest killer in terms of this being more than just a developer board, though, is how it's still behind in performance, efficiency, and especially idle power draw. Like, for a desktop, 10 or 15 watts isn't the end of the world, but for a laptop, that's just no good. The latest BIOS idles around 7 to 8 watts, which is okay, but the MacBook Neo comes in at less than a watt idle, and even the AMD Ryzen 340 mainboard is down at 2.7 watts. That's all measured at the wall with the battery fully charged and the screen off.
True.
On the display, and you have this thing at 10 watts, the Neo at 3 watts, and AMD.
Ooh.
This
That is a
than the RISC-V main
interesting comparison.
last year, which burns through 25 watts doing nothing. But that
Yeah, but the Risk V is like very immature compared to ARM and everything.
Board is really targeted at developers only, not the
Exactly.
This ARM board could work for anyone if the price is right. Unfortunately, with memory, it's priced the same as the Ryzen 5 340 board, which is faster across the board and just about as efficient. And it's
Yeah, if I were buying an ARM board, I would be buying the RK3588 upgrade for my MNT Pocket Reform laptop before I would probably be spending money on this. As much as I would like to get an ARM or RISC-powered framework laptop, yeah.
double the cost of a Neo, which is way faster for
RISC-V doesn't have a proper idle state. Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, it still needs a lot of time to mature. Right now, it's still kind of this, not theoretical, but you get what I mean. Like, it's still, you know, being smoothed out and, you know, polished.
bursty stuff, but is actually around the same.
x86 has the ability to completely turn off sections of the CPU at idle.
Really hurts things when it comes to using this thing as a laptop. And I think that, along with the fact the memory shortage drove the price up from the $550 launch price to like $800 today, means that this board will have a limited
Use
audience.
emulators. I don't use emulators for Steam on my ARM64. I run it straight. No.
Right now, in the middle of 2026, if you want a good value ARM laptop, get a Neo. Until next time, I'm Jeff Geerling. This is
Nice. All right. I mean, I'd be interested in playing with that, but yeah. Okay, so Vampire shared the Internet Archive is in serious danger. This is from Some Ordinary Gamers. Wasn't there some controversy around him or something like that, if I can't remember? Wasn't this the guy that, like, people were... Like, he was calling himself a computer engineer, but wasn't really, or something. I don't remember the details, but anyway. What's he talking about?
Boys and gals, me Mutahar, and you know, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a while since I talked about the old Internet Archive, the Wayback Machine. You know, the Internet Archives that are slowly...
This guy is just another pirate software. That's kind of the vibe I get. And I generally do not like to start beef or, you know, sling mud or anything like that. I don't have any issue with Some Ordinary Gamers myself or, you know, any, you know, I've never met the guy or anything like that. It's just like the few things that I've come across or like seen his videos, I just kind of like, okay. Not enough to really care. But enough to be like, you know what I mean? He just reads articles and makes up in his head what it means. Yeah, pretty much. Oh yeah, did you see like Pirate Software lost like 90% of his viewership and everything? Like, that just blows my mind, because, like, I remember this guy was, like, on the top, and he was, like, everywhere. You could not open up a TikTok or a YouTube without seeing him in some short somewhere. Yeah, he had a following like anyone would have killed to have, and then, was it... First he had the OnlyFans, then he had Stop Killing Games, but yeah, anyway.
Getting attacked by, you know, organizations like book publishers, the FBI, so on and so forth. Now, of course, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a huge supporter of the Internet Archive. I think most people who make internet content like me are, because without the Internet Archive, there'd be a lot of videos that I've made, big videos that wouldn't have been possible.
Idiots follow the loudest people,
just
yeah.
couldn't dig up the origins of the internet, you know? There's something about the internet. Anytime you post something, it's there forever.
It's also, the problem is because, like, a lot of professionals, like actual professionals, because we actually have to work during the day, we can't, like, make content all the time. It feels like because the professionals are actually working, that the people that actually aren't working professionally in here get to make more content to create more clout and following for them. That you get, I don't know, but you get what I'm kind of going at.
And large in part, the biggest reason for that is the Wayback Machine. Now, of course, the Wayback Machine for
we have a clout paradox. Also, a lot of professionals use techie terms that idiots don't understand. Yeah, that's generally why I tend to dumb things down and add humor.
over here, and you get sent to an older archive of the internet, provided it's actually stored in this archive. And
Okay, you know, I'm just going to look at the summary here, because I really don't want to go through an 18-minute video here, because I think I know what he's going to go on. Some Ordinary Gamers explores how major publishers and AI companies are increasingly blocking the Internet Archive from scraping their websites by examining the technical methods used to bypass these restrictions. The discussion highlights the growing struggle to preserve historical... Okay, so yeah, a bunch of companies are blocking the Internet Archive from accessing their site. Okay, big deal. Not a shock. You can do that with robots.txt so that people don't crawl your website. Some people can get around it. It's just kind of this thing like, please respect me, but we can easily get around that. There's a lot of ways to obviously get around, you know, these blocks for scraping and everything. But Internet Archive likes to be a good steward of the internet. So, yeah. I'm not going to go through the full 18 minutes with this guy. But that's more or less the situation of what's been happening. And it's been a big problem because a lot of news agencies, we've been using Internet Archive and such to prove when they edit stories, when government sites have been modified or altered. So it's actually been a really great tool for us to hold companies accountable. I mean, even law firms have used it in court cases to show when things have changed. But yeah. All right. Kara had a video from Data Slayer. It's been a good run, ISPs. Okay, that's an hour and 13 minutes long. I wish we could have that much of attention span to go into. Yeah, so he's expanding his video on Wi-Fi, Halo, and mesh networking. Eventually, I want to dive into this stuff myself with some stuff I'm doing, but an hour and 13-minute video is a little bit too long to watch here, understandably. We try to keep the videos around 20 minutes or so, but let's check this out. Kara also sent Exploring Prime OS, the Android desktop that's already out. So there have been Android desktops in the past. The first one that I remember I came across was at CES 2016 when I was there in person. There was a operating system I was handed a flash drive of called Remix OS. And it was literally, it's now a discontinued Android operating system, but the whole goal was for it to have x86-64 support, and you could boot and run off this flash drive and install it, and you'd essentially have full-on Android. But this was also like very, very long ago. It had mixed results, but it was an interesting product. I think just really ahead of the time, so I'm curious what Prime OS will come out with.
I know that over the years, I have spent quite a bit of time talking about using Android, not just as the thing that your phone runs or your tablet runs, but actually using it as a desktop operating system. Now, of course, we have phones you can plug into an external monitor or into a lap dock, and you're going to get a desktop experience like Samsung DeX, Moto's Smart Connect. Even your Pixel can do this. But I think the more interesting way to look at this, or the most interesting sort of product, is a dedicated device that runs Android with a desktop UI.
I don't see what the use case for this would be, because I'm kind of at the point where it's like, if you need a basic computer to have Android, why not a Chromebook? What is this going to provide that the others can't do? Android is too locked down for a desktop environment. Possibly, but let's throw this out here. What if there's a mobile application that you need to run on desktops for whatever weird reason? Like, content creators, there's quite a few apps that we use that don't work as well on desktop, like TikTok. Okay, so TikTok, it works okay on a desktop. We've seen I play videos and all that. I can answer DMs and everything. But when I need to start going into like my metrics as a creator and stuff like that, I need to go on the app. there's a few things on Instagram I can only do inside the app that I can't do on a website. So, yeah. Isn't there a WSL environment to run Android apps? Yeah, there is stuff to do that, like BlueStacks and all that. But let's talk about the average everyday user, okay? Take our tech person hat off and put on our normie hat, if you will, with me. Put yourself in the shoes of that boomer in your family. Not even that. Just think about the person that doesn't really understand a lot of computing. And now imagine they need a solution to be able to run their things. You see where I'm going at with that? See the latest Java Open Telemetry vulnerability. Not shocked that that's a thing. Java has had vulnerabilities for many years. I mean, it's an old technology. Not saying it is insecure in and of itself. I'm just saying it's had vulnerabilities. See the Windows Defender exploit that allows malware to take control of Windows Defender when it's scanning the malware. Also not surprised that could happen. Windows Defender has been one of the biggest points of attack for malware for many years. It makes sense.
We know that Google is about to basically replace Chrome OS with Android. The code name for this is Aluminium OS. I kind of doubt that's what it's going to be called when it's released. We might have these devices as soon as this year. But what if I told you...
So is that the official word? Because I heard like rumors about that Google wanted to move into a unifying the operating systems. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it totally makes sense for that to be done. Yeah. Trying to center the frickin' TikTok feed.
There was a very small company who started working on this idea as far back as like 7 years ago. I suspect that some of you have heard of this before, but we're talking about Prime OS. This is Android with a desktop UI. It has a taskbar, it has your windows, it does...
Okay, I centered that at least.
That DeX or that Aluminium OS are going to do, but again, this goes back 7 years. They've been working on this for a long time, and in fact, you can buy, right now in India, hardware. You can buy a laptop, a Prime Book from them that runs this operating system.
Okay, but why?
About this is because Prime Book is about to be expanding out of India. You're going to be able to go onto Amazon in Europe, in the United States, and order a Prime Book and get that thing in. So
get that thing!
To take a look at Prime OS and see how viable this is.
From India, yeah, apparently. That's a red flag. I don't think it's a red flag just because it's from India. You have to remember... What is it? Like, we have, like, what, 7 billion people on the planet? And roughly a third of those people are in China, and roughly another third of those are in India, or something like that. Either way, they are the two most populous countries. So you have to take into that consideration, there's going to be people that are into technology over there. And those people are going to want to create products and want to sell them to the global market. And India has a large tech scene. Let me tell you that. There's a reason why, yes, we meme a lot about Indian tech support and everything, but there's a reason why that's a thing. And why there's the big discussions around H-1B hirings of, Indians and other nationalities in the tech field.
Aluminium OS laptop. What if you could just buy a Prime Book that is very similar to the same thing and likely at a lower price? And luckily, thankfully, and thanks to the guys over at Prime Book, they were willing to facilitate this. They sent over the Prime Book Max for me to take a look at. Now, like I said, this is the Prime Book 2 Max, but I don't want to focus too much on the hardware just because my understanding is this is not the hardware they're going to be shipping.
I was going to say, a MediaTek CPU is a little bit low end.
And into the United States. I really want to just focus on the operating system.
About India, but when it comes to IT, they do need the needful. True.
Job here. So at first glance, you might be forgiven for thinking this is like a build of Linux or something like that. You have a task.
I mean, it is a build of Linux. It's Android.
Down here at the bottom, you have a little start menu where your apps are going to live. You have a dedicated back button for certain apps that might need that. You have a home button.
That is so weird to see your back button is like right there. Whoever made that UI suggestion was smoking something.
Which is going to just sort of minimize all your apps. You even have Gemini built into this, which I think is...
Do you think a bachelor's in computer information systems is worth it? I'm trying to make 100K. I mean, you can do that with or without a bachelor's. I don't have my bachelor's yet, and I'm making more than 100K.
Pretty cool, because whenever you tap on this, it's going to open up Gemini just like it would on your phone or on your laptop. You can see here that there's a microphone and it is listening to me. You can share your screen. Like, it works just like it would work on your phone, on your tablet, something like that. It is very, very useful. I've already found a couple of instances where I've needed to use
I'm curious, how much is this?
You have a little clipboard icon down here that will allow you to quickly access your clipboard. And then very much like Windows, you have a little quick settings menu that pops up here with your Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, all of these different.
Okay, so the Prime book is over here. Yeah, you can definitely tell this was made in India. Because, like, you ever notice how, like, if it's an American product, they purposely go out of their way to use a diverse cast of characters in their stock photos? But every time I've seen a product there's like these nuances you've noticed from different cultures when they're releasing things. Like, the Chinese tend to go for white people. Sometimes they'll put Asian people in there, but they tend to, like, put white people in there. And sometimes it's, like, randomly in the most funny ways possible. Like, now that you will hear this, you will never be able to unsee it. It's the same thing as, like, you go into, like, Saudi Arabia and you'll find people that are, you know, dressed in the keffiyeh and everything there. Whereas if you see somebody do that in America, they're going out of their way to, you know, showcase that. But anyway, let's look at the Prime book. So it is not wanting to render because of my dark mode thing. So that's already a negative point for you. You are forcing me onto light mode. Okay, so let's see. They have the Prime Book 2 Neo, Prime Book 2 Pro, and the Prime Book 2 Max. So let's look up 30,000 RS to USD. So that's $314. That's not bad for that little guy. So this is 420. And this one is 525. So price-wise, these are actually not too bad. Okay? That's pretty inexpensive. Now, again, these are prices as of this stream. So, that's really cheap. You get 6 gigabytes of RAM, 128 gigabyte of UFS storage, 29.4 watt-hour battery, with a MediaTek G99 8-core CPU. Okay, so that's the Neo. That's their low-end one. Did Apple make Neo the whole, like, entry-level thing? Like, I hate the fact that people are like, oh, Apple just did this. We have to do exactly what Apple did. Like, now they have, like, they're doing the whole branding where it's like, Neo, Pro, and Max. I do not like when companies just go and copy other companies' lineup names. Give you some work advice, trying to decide if I stay on this contract or not. I mean, you can share some stuff, but, I mean, we can't, you know, tell you what's the best decision for you, but we can at least lead you to what you think will be the best decision for you. Okay, so all of these are using the same Helio processor. So, yeah, MT8781. So they're all using the same CPU. So performance-wise, from going from one laptop to the next, the Neo Pro and Max is going to be the same. The main difference seems to be the Max version is 8 gigabytes of RAM with 256 gigabytes of storage. Hold up. Where is it? The Pro version, 8 gigabytes and 120 gigabytes of storage. So the Pro and the Max have the same amount of RAM. The difference is the storage. And then I think they're even all in the same shell. No, okay, PrimeBook 2 Pro is 14.1 inch, then that's 15 inch, and then this is the 11.6 inch. So, okay. So I will say, as cheap as they are, it's not a bad price.
Sorts of things. And then, of course, you do have a little notification panel as well. So
yeah, it's storage and screen is primarily the main difference.
Really well. Let's just find
Is it upgradable? No, this is not upgradable. It's an ARM, so very, very few ARM products I've noticed have upgradable memory and storage.
And you'll see how that works. Nice little animation, having it kind of rise up from the bottom. You can drag this thing around. You can resize it to change the sort of aspect ratio of that app. Let's try that again.
Yeah, that's the one downside with ARM, is it's not as easy to upgrade in many cases with them. I have not seen that many devices with upgradable memory. Do you know anyone that would be interested in pen testing a page through a 1.5 thousand USD per vulnerability found pen testing? Yes, I do. In my Discord, Marco, you're in my Discord, right? Tag Parrot Assassin. Tell them I sent you. They're my red teaming buddy. Yeah, Parrot Security. That's who I would refer them to. But yeah, Parrot is in my Discord. That's who I would send it to.
There we go. And let's hit that home button. You can see what that looks like. It just minimizes it down into that icon. If we jump into our settings application, you will see that this is Android. I mean,
very welcome.
Just what this is. I believe this is running Android 15 at the moment. The biggest thing that I will point out is that despite the fact that this thing is running Android 15, you do not have access to the Google Play Store on this device or with this operating system. They have their own little app store, which is going to allow you to install some things, but what you're going to have to kind of get used to doing, at least for most of us, is going to some place like APK Mirror and side-loading your applications.
That's going to become a problem as Google cracks down on us side-loading our applications and the developer signing of things. So this is one issue that I am noticing. Remix OS, this looks almost exactly like Remix OS. Like, except for the back button and some of the icon styling. But Remix, I played with that a decade ago. That was the first Android desktop operating system that I remember. It had an app, a Google App Store, if I remember, in there. So it's kind of interesting that they can't get that, but I wonder if it's because, no, it is a released product. So that's curious.
Let me actually just test this in real time. They've got their own browser, which is just called Browser, but it looks like Chrome, and it actually has extension support, which is pretty cool. That's a nice touch. Let's see how well F-Droid works, because that would definitely help a little bit with just sort of installing different applications.
I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be able.
You can go to APK Mirror, you can download APKs and sideload them, so we should have no problem at all sideloading F-Droid, which is
yeah,
an alternate app store. You saw how easy that is. So then from there, you can just select an application and you should be able to install it through F-Droid just fine. It is going to ask you to give F-Droid permission to actually install applications.
Yep.
Pretty standard Android thing. But after that, we should be fine. And this application has installed. There is NextDNS. So there are workarounds, but it is going to be a little bit of a problem, I think, for quite a few people, especially in the US, who are likely to really need the Google Play Store. I guess the best...
Yeah, like think about like if you're using the TikTok app or some other ones that you can't just grab easily from a mirror, and you're going to need to make sure that you're on updated versions of the software. Because F-Droid, while it has a good amount of software, it doesn't have everything. Like I even noticed, what was it? I think Proton, some of their apps are not even in F-Droid. I'll find a way to install NewtPipe after Google cracks down. Way too good not having ads and an algo dictating my feed. Huh, not familiar with that one.
Is that since this does have a desktop class browser, a lot of things that maybe you would be using an application for, right? Something like YouTube or different like text editing applications.
Parrot Boy on Discord, that would be the same one.
Rather than using an application, you can just use your web browser and that is going to work pretty darn well. So having this desktop class browser certainly going to help bridge that gap a little bit. Now they do offer some cloud PC stuff. There is a cloud Windows PC and a cloud Linux PC, which again should kind of further help to bridge that app gap problem. But I also did just notice that they have the Aurora store inside their app store as well. And that...
Holy, what? That is such a janky workaround. So we can't get the Google Play Store to work because we're not certifying it, and we even allow like ChatGPT and Duolingo, but we allow you to have the Aurora App Store. Interesting. Now I'm curious about this, Prime Linux, cloud here or that. Oh, I see. Run at less than 10 rupee an hour. So they're probably creating some kind of a cloud service to you to run the app in. So 10 rupees to USD. So that's 10 cents. So that's 10 cents per hour. All right. 24 times 30. So that's $72 a month to run this VM. Yeah.
That is another alternative app store. Let's kind of check it out real quick and see if it has a better app selection than F-Droid. For some reason, I feel like I remember that being the case.
It is the case.
The Aurora store has quite a bit more stuff on here.
Well, Aurora is basically the Google App Store, as I recall it, but allowing you to download it without having to be tied to your Google account. So, as I recall, it should have access to everything that is in the Play Store, as opposed to F-Droid, that is, as I recall, their own siloed off community focusing on free open source software.
Let's go to the top charts, and you can see a lot of the more popular applications that people are using, and these should be readily installable through.
So, I could see a use case for this laptop in terms of, like, TikTok. If you could run CapCut on this, it could be a nice editor for those things if you were just doing it in stuff inside of CapCut. But I moved to using Opus for my clips and Kdenlive, so it's like, yeah, I mean,
so again,
it's feeling like a square peg and round hole kind of
Google app
solution.
my browser of choice. Let's see if this is readily installable. If so, this is going to be a big benefit. So that has installed, and Vivaldi is running just fine. You're not going to have the extensions you have on their browser, but I mean, look at that. That is working really quite well.
A truck driver making 90K. How long would it take me to get the proper certs and labs experience to make the same or more? I'm gonna tell you the straight honest truth based off of Midwest knowledge that I have of the economy and the market. It's not generally something you will do within the first year, it may take several years, to be completely honest. Now, I have heard of people, because they're pivoting from other industries and they've been in the field longer, there is a little bit of a scale adjustment for, years of experience, whether they be in IT or not. But it will take some time. Generally speaking, in most of IT and cybersecurity, it's not like you just kind of go in and make 100K or more. I was in the field for many years, and what was it? Only just 3 years ago, after being in the field for, at that time, 11, 12 years, I just started getting close to, like, we're talking hundreds of dollars away from 100K, and I finally cracked that this year, becoming a senior security engineer. Can it happen? Yes, but it's improbable. So it'll take a lot of time. I know truck driving is a hard job. It's a respectable job. I got a few friends that do that. You can do a little bit of, working on certs and knowledge and everything to get there, but if you do make the switch, I'm going to be honest, there may be a period in time where you're going to be making less money for a while until you pick back up. I can't tell you if that decision is the best one for you. I can just tell you the reality of the situation. That's more or less the same thing with any career field when you're making a change. It takes you time to get these skills, knowledge, and everything involved, pay your dues and everything to get to that point.
So one of the biggest things that they are pushing with this operating system is their Prime Agent. And what this does is...
I think I enjoyed your query. What was your query, Bengali? I may have missed it on accident. My pleasure, Jerry. Happy hacking, buddy.
Something that they started 7 years ago, and now Google is doing themselves. This is similar. Google is, slowly giving us the ability for Gemini to take control of our devices and do full tasks for
I don't know if I like this.
They've got that already. So here's what we're going to ask it to do. And we'll just see how well this works. We're going to say, open Vivaldi and browse to youtube.com. If this actually works, I'm going to be very, very impressed. So the idea is this Prime Agent, okay, it just did it. It opened up Vivaldi. It just clicked on the taskbar. It's typing in youtube.com.
What the shit?
Going to youtube.com. That is kind of crazy to see this computer just sort of running itself. Wow. I can already hear the privacy concerns being typed into the comments down below, and I totally understand that, but there are a couple of things that I think make me a little bit less concerned. So number one, it is powered by Gemini. So if you trust Gemini to see your phone screen, you might trust it to see this device screen as well. Like it's not.
I don't trust it to see my phone screen, period.
If you don't use it, it can't see anything. So if you don't go in and actually give it accessibility permissions where it can see your screen, it can't see your screen, so it should be totally fine. Now that being said, as cool as it is to watch your computer just like do fairly complex tasks on its own, and there definitely is some potential there for productivity, I am a little bit hesitant to say that this is the approach that I would have taken with Prime OS if I were involved in that, simply because I would be fearful that I would be sort of kicking the hornet's nest a little bit. This thing, Prime OS, Prime Books, I think the people that are going to buy them are going to be like fairly like techie Android user people, and a lot of those people are pretty not happy with the proliferation of AI, and something that is, like the point of it is it's going to be able to see what your screen has on and then do things through that. I think those privacy concerns are going to be a bit of a problem for them. They're going to need to go quite far in convincing people that this is safe, this is secure, and you don't have to use it, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That would be probably my biggest concern, besides the lack of the play. This is my biggest concern with Prime OS. That being
I don't really see techie people buying these laptops. I see more of the entry-level user buying these laptops. The people that would be buying a Chromebook would be buying this.
said, if you're not super concerned with these privacy things, I do think that like what you see here on the screen doing these sorts of things is really quite cool. I mean, you just watched it open up YouTube Music. It found my super mix. It is, I think, about to tap on that and open it up. There you go. Just tap the element. This is pretty darn cool. Like being able to hit a button, tell your computer, hey, do X, Y, and Z, and then walk away and just have it kind of do that for you. There is definitely something very novel and very, very interesting about it.
I think it'd be interesting if I didn't have it using AI and sending out all my information. If we can do this locally on a machine without the information leaving off device, it'll be better.
The ability for that sort of thing to do what it's doing, and it works surprisingly well. I think for me, the bigger story here is just how this company has been like consistently doing things years before Google would then do the same thing.
Well, they've been around for a while.
The agentic AI thing, being able to just take control of your entire computer and just do complex tasks. We know Google is working towards this, and they're already here. Something else that is going to be, I think, we've seen the rumors, we've seen the leaks that's going to be there with Aluminium OS, is full key mapping. They have that as well. You can map places on your screen to keys, which would allow you to play mobile games.
Wait, what?
Keyboard instead of having to reach up and use the touchscreen. They just seem to be a little bit ahead of the curve on a lot of these things for whatever.
Interesting. Yeah, it looks like an interesting little device. I don't know if I'll buy it, but yeah. All right, what's the next thing? Works by design. Vampire shared this, making the most pick-proof lock yet. Okay, lock-picking lawyer McNally, you're up! Okay, so what is this?
This lock is designed to be impossible to pick, but I've said that before. Twice I've tried to build an unpickable lock, and twice I was wrong. Today, I'm testing my final attempt.
I can feel the little click right there.
Before it faces a much bigger challenge. For centuries, nearly...
We like lockpicking around here. By the way, Sparrows are the best lockpick trainers that I can recommend. There's probably others out there, but Sparrows makes them the best.
Every lock has shared a weakness, but no longer. Because inside this, gears rotate, keys turn on and off, and mechanically balanced pins all work together, locking out anything but the key. But in order to succeed, I'll need to pick the brains of the very people I hope to lock out. Welcome to the making of Unpickable.
The argument I'd make is that if it can take a key, then it can be broken through. Yeah.
And it's just a matter of time before most locks can be picked. And that's the problem I've been trying to solve. How do you get a key to open a lock, but not anything else? In my previous attempt, I was trying to stop a very specific type of lockpicking, where tools are used to first tension the core, and then push up each pin one by one. Both of those locks were picked, so here's the new plan. For now, we're going to ignore trying to make a lock that's cut-proof or indestructible.
Right.
Destructive entries are a concern, but I'm going to focus all my attention on making it pick-proof first. So that is step number 1. For step 2,
right, you can always make it more robust later.
Locks for a living. And finally, for step 3, I'll make copies of the lock and send them around the world to some of the best lock pickers that I can find. Let's start with what we know. Locks work in practically the same way they have for hundreds of years.
Yo, who wants to reach out to this creator and tell him I'm going to DEF CON and I can totally get this in front of, like, hundreds of people to try to pick this lock? Like, that's not even a joke. I'll be at several different cybersecurity conferences. So I will be at, like, GERCON, DEF CON, B-Sides Las Vegas. Yeah.
Key goes in, pin goes up, core rotates, lock is unlocked.
Right.
One way we could make this harder is by adding more pins.
Right.
Gates, or just adding complex mechanisms that nobody's ever seen.
Serrations, things like that.
Through obscurity. And it's not ideal because it's sort of like a complex puzzle. It's only a matter of time before the curtain is lifted and the puzzle is solved. And so my plan is to obscure nothing and show you.
So the issue is, like, people talk about security through obscurity, like changing your port numbers and stuff like that on devices. And the reason why I generally advise against that and focusing on true security is security through obscurity is a one-trick pony. It only works one time. Once your obfuscations are detected, they know exactly how to go around it the next time. So it doesn't matter if you switch from port 22 to 2222. What, you think they're not going to figure that out?
Exactly how my lock works through this video. This means that having inside information about the lock shouldn't actually help you pick it. And so to start, I think I'll just completely remove the keyway.
A-bus locks. Some of the best locks. That's some nice editing. Wonder how long it took them to make that animation. Despite me seeing like everyone using bamboo printers, I refuse to buy them for myself because of the, in my view, unethical stances they've been taking on software ownership and ownership of the devices. Yeah.
Alright, so one of the easiest ways I've found to test a key is by having a keyway. And so what I've been working on is a lock that tests the key after it closes its door. So here we'll just insert the key. We will turn the dial to close the door. And then we'll just turn the whole thing another 45 degrees or so. And here it would theoretically test the key and unlock the lock. Now, though this is just a model,
okay,
it's easy to start to see some issues. Even though the door closes on the keyway, before this happens, the internals are still visible through the keyway. And there's possibly enough time before the door closes completely to still mess with something. So it also might be possible to jam or otherwise disable the doorway on the lock, and then you'd be left with the keyway just like any other lock. And so if only there was a way to completely keep the keyway empty of any of the mechanisms.
Okay. I don't think I'll ever be able to spend this much time editing and doing animations in my videos. Okay. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like the animations and all that, but I feel like this is a bit much. This is a YouTube video.
One thing I keep coming back to is how I can use magnets in my design. So I've been working...
Magnets. How exactly do they work? Nobody knows.
Working on this magnetic pin system. This way the keyway is always empty and there won't be anything to pick. Unfortunately, I'm not quite there yet, but we'll also still need the door, as obviously magnets can be affected by other magnets, meaning picking might still be possible. And my worst fears were realized after I found this other magnetic padlock on the market. As you can see, it doesn't have a keyway, but I found with a bit of luck and some random magnetic fields, it can still be opened. I was still pretty tied to this magnetic pin idea, but the way I was going about it made making more than 2 positions on these pins really difficult. And if all your pins are binary, even with 9 pins, you only have 251 possible combinations. So let's forget about pins for a second. If we're trying to make the locking mechanism inaccessible to any tools, I think we're on the right track with the door.
Okay.
Instead of a door, we take a look at the keyway. It's centered now, but let's shift this over to one side of the core.
So here's the issue I have with the door being used. A lot of people have keychains. Would I have to physically take my key off the keychain every time to use it?
Now add back the lock face with the same shifted keyway, and as we rotate the core, it swings around and is hidden behind the outer face of the lock, replacing our door by simply turning the lock as it needs to anyways. This also allows for a keyway that appears completely empty, as all of our mechanisms can happen over on the hidden side. So I have some questions about how the key might work in this new lock, and I was going to show you that.
Seems like it makes sense, at least from that logic.
Get it to work. So I think instead I'm going to try a different method. So it turns out pins are one of the easiest ways to decode physical keys. And because they exist in so many locks today, and are readily available like the set I have here, I've decided to use them in my own lock design. But because they're so incredibly small, I've made some cardboard ones to help us visualize.
Okay.
This is a typical key entering a keyway. You'll notice that the key has ramped features to allow each pin to slide over the key freely. This is my new lock design with an offset keyway. Please excuse the poor quality, it's hard to cut circles from cardboard. Also, the keyway is now a rectangle instead of a slot, but it's the same idea. Here's the problem. If we rotate the core and have no key, the pins fall into the keyway and jam it up.
Right.
Well, most locks already have what's called a warding. In our case, by adding a ramped warding, we can keep the pins from falling into the keyway and also just cam them back out.
Okay.
The key can just take the shape of our keyway, allowing the pins to sit in each cut of the key at their correct heights. So this might be the first cut, this could be the second cut, and so on down the length of our key. But remember, all of this is behind the lock face, and the only way in is after the core is rotated back to the open position. But you might see the problem here, and that is that there's no way to rotate the core from the outside. Unless, of course, you have access to the inside. So
right.
Some sort of dial or turning interface like we had on our first lock design. But a dial only really works on a door lock. If we want to put this mechanism into a padlock, it forces us to have this big cylindrical profile.
Right.
One solution is having a smaller dial on the center of the core. But now the smaller dial interferes with the key, and we have to increase the diameter of the core to allow the key to swing around it.
That's going to be a big and beefy lock.
Shift the dial to one side. Now the core can shrink down, and we can gear it to the dial. This dramatically decreases the space we need, and we should be able to fit the whole thing in a more traditional rectangular padlock. But I'm already sensing a new problem. All of the key needs to enter the lock and disappear behind a wall. I don't know about you, but I don't carry a pile of loose keys in my pocket.
And that's the problem that I brought up earlier.
But also not have to fumble with taking it off every time I unlock something. I've been having some luck with my software now, but it's got some unusual bugs and a haunting presence. But if for some reason cardboard-aided design interests you, it's actually based on my favorite modeling software, Onshape. Onshape is completely cloud native, meaning crashes and a computer full of cardboard.
Yeah, we've heard about Onshape. Skip.
Issue some more, and this is definitely one of my favorite solutions. This is the actual size of the key in the current design.
Okay.
It is a scaled version. The plan is to add a key handle like many other standard keys have, and so it may look something like this. But to connect and disconnect the two halves, I've been inspired by the way quick connect fittings work on airlines. Applying this
that's a clever take, but
can live in these voids, and a switch will run between them, spring-loaded from the back. With these parts in place, the bearings keep the two halves from separating.
okay, but the question I have is, how do you prevent it from failing? Because, like, now you're making the key itself a point of failure. Like, I'm just thinking about keys get abused every single day. I mean, it's no secret. Everybody that has keys, you think about it, they get thrown, they get tossed, they get, dropped on asphalt, they can get soaking wet, all of that stuff. So I'm curious how that will play out.
To use our key in our lock, we can pull back on our switch, and as we pull away, the ramps on the key side push the bearings out of the way. But the reason I've scaled this up so large isn't just for you. It's also because fitting that mechanism into a key this small has some issues. We could probably do it with metal parts, but if the key is pushed wrong while it's in your pocket, or simply dropped, those tiny features are going to deform and break. So with this in mind, my thoughts again return to magnets. If we can design a latch that separates
Magnets.
too much force,
How do they work?
we can save those parts from breaking. Where did that come from? Dale indicator stand. Who's Dale? Anyways, because the cross section is so small on this key, the size of magnet that I could fit are very weak. Not to mention, how do you deposit the key into the lock when the magnet is trying to pull it back out?
And you'd have a balancing game because it's like, okay, if you make the magnet too strong, now the key won't be able to separate when the lock mechanism is working. And again, as he's showing, if it's too weak, you can easily lose it in your pocket.
That's when I remembered I had one of these on my desk. This is a dial indicator stand, but all we need to know about it is that it can turn on and off with this switch. If we place a piece of steel underneath it and turn it on, it holds onto the steel fairly strongly. And this thing doesn't take any batteries, so how is it doing that? Well, if we turn it around and look at the back, you can see the circular disc spinning as we turn it on or off. This disc is actually a long cylindrical magnet that is magnetic through the diameter. Surrounding it are steel. There's a gap between the steel where a non-magnetic material like brass or aluminum is used. When the device is turned off, it is quite literally just turning the cylinder so that the north and south poles are vertical in the housing.
That's clever.
The magnetic field
Didn't know those kind of things exist.
like it usually does, but the mass of the steel keeps the fields from going outside, sort of containing it. But when it's turned 90 degrees to the on position, the field can no longer pass from north to south because of the brass dividers. It's only when another chunk of material bridges the gap where the field can pass to the other side of the magnet, turning the entire housing into one large controllable magnet. So I'm not 100% sure on that explanation, so definitely correct me if I'm wrong, but the idea is to do the same thing but with the key. Instead of trying to fit tiny magnets inside the key, I can put a large disc magnet in the handle.
The cam died? Damn it. Hold on. I have no idea what happened there.
The key. But the handle will just be separated into two halves. To keep the two halves separated, I've just printed out some plastic.
Had to turn it off and turn it back on.
And if we remember what we just learned, this should be the off position. Now we will rotate the magnet into the on position. But when we put them side by side is when you can really see the difference. Now as we introduce our key, it sticks to the handle as we imagine it should. Now we'll just rotate to the off position. And it is still slightly magnetic, although I think that's just because we need more mass in our handle. You can really see how the on position affects the flow of that magnetic field. All we need now is a better way to turn this on and off, and add some more mass into the handle to capture as much of the magnetic field as we can.
But as I was saying, I know it's a minimum viable product that he's working on right now. I just feel like that would be introducing more points of failure inside of that. And if you're talking about a metal device, those go in the water. There potentially could be rust internally, so you would probably have to put some kind of a grease or something in there. I mean, maybe you could I'm just thinking like dielectric grease, you know, petroleum jelly. You could throw that in there and that could repel water, but that only works for so long.
So I've been through a ton of prototypes on this lock, and I think I've worked out all the problems. I've also decided to go with a padlock as opposed to a door lock because they're self-contained and it just looks cooler. But before I share some of the hidden features, and most importantly, before we give it to a locksmith to test, I'm really tired of these 3D printed parts and they need an upgrade.
You're gonna get them machined. Making padlocks keys. I keep my padlock keys in the house in a vault. Huh. Okay. I mean, I like how artistic he is, but man, he could have, he's doing a little bit too much. So PCB way machined them. They machined the, top to my little laptop as well. I don't care about little cardboard dude! Like, seriously, you spent so much time rendering cardboard dude. Don't care about it. Show me the locks. When do you normally live stream? I'm scheduled Sundays, Mondays, and Wednesdays, usually around 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but sometimes we do additional days in the evenings.
So it's almost 2.5 pounds.
Really cool seeing stuff under a microscope. Oh yeah.
But it was only made possible because of PCB Way, who made it extremely easy to upload my designs and receive these beautifully...
Technically, PCB Way is partnered with me on the mini laptop whenever I get around to that, but the guy that I was working with has left, and I don't have a contact there. So, that'll be interesting. I'm still going to make the video eventually.
But the real question is, does it work? Well, the short answer is yes, but let's take a look at the inside. The first step, of course, is to insert the key. We then turn off the key handle and move it over to the drive gear. The key won't fall out because there's a small magnet holding it in place above the core. Now we'll rotate the handle one full revolution, and at this point it has interfaced with
Interesting.
the but is completely behind the lock body, making it inaccessible to any tools. Assuming we have...
Do you think someone can design a crossover chat so all platforms can see all chats? What? For live streaming? You mean like... Hold on. You mean like this? They already have it. How do you think I keep up with all the chats on all the different platforms? Oh, but for you? So the issue that I have is, I'm not allowed to show other platforms' chats on screen, I believe because of Twitch. Twitch is the big douche in this situation here, in terms of terms and conditions. Theoretically, I just don't know the API with TikTok, because TikTok's API is so janky. But I could theoretically feed that into, like, Discord or Matrix. So we have to lawyer up. Yeah, it's an issue because, believe me, I want to show that screen in chat. They have the functionality for that to be an overlay that I could put it into OBS and then everyone can just read my chat. You know, from all the platforms. But I'm trying to mind my P's and T's so that way I don't get kicked off of platforms. So, yeah.
Inserted the correct key. All the pins have been set at the shear line between the red outer core and the lock housing. This means we can rotate our handle one more half turn, allowing the red outer core to unlock the shackle. To relock the lock, we'll just turn our handle all the way back, move the handle into the keyway, remember to turn it back on, and extract our key.
But does the key have to stay inside when, you know, like, what happens if you want to leave the lock unlocked? Does the key have to stay inside? I've seen the program for YouTube to be in Twitch chat and YouTube chat, but TOS. Yeah, that's the issue I have. This platform I have, Social Stream Ninja it's called, I have the ability to tie it into my LLM server and a bunch of other stuff, but I also have the ability to connect it to Facebook, Instagram Live, Rumble, no, I can actually... Oh, I can even tie this into a Discord, so I can have it, like, read a Discord chat and have them go from there. Oh, that's actually useful. Oh, then you can also do Trovo, Picardo, the Live, Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, and then they also allow you for custom URL, so you can do, like, PeerTube and stuff like that, too. There's a lot of platforms it supports.
So I'm pretty confident that you're not going to get any picks into this lock. As you can see, once it's turned into position, it's basically just a wall. You just cannot get anything past that wall. But picks aren't the only way to get into a lock.
Shim.
And one of the ways that worries me the most is a form of inertia attack. The idea being
a bump.
Whack one side of the lock with a hammer or mallet while you're turning the drive gear with a screwdriver, and with just enough luck, you can get all the pins to hop up above the shear line. So let me introduce you to the lockout pin. This little guy sits opposite the key pins, and under normal conditions, he just floats there, held in place by a tension spring that runs down the center. First, an attack would involve turning the core into the pins.
There's another Discord channel when it's fun. I've seen a program where stream to Discord where stream chats go to Discord.
But the spring is just enough to keep it stationary. That is, unless the lock is vibrated, bumped.
Yeah, if you want to keep a lookout and see if there's something to do that for TikTok, Twitch, all that, it also might be useful in a mod capacity.
Or moved too quickly, and the pin's own mass shifts it into the pull of the magnet.
Hey!
Into the cavity on the core.
Thanks for the sub over there, Darko.
The only way
the kick sub
is to turn the drive.
Thank you for that. I haven't set up my Kick alerts, so I still got to get around to doing that. But thank you. 4 months on Kick. Appreciate it.
gear all the way back to the beginning. Now you might be questioning whether any of this will work in reality, and so am I. So while you've been catching up on how it all works, I've reached out to a local locksmith. That is Mr. and Mrs. Locksmith.
No, because when I saw it, like I said, I'm just like, if you can't get tension on any of the pins.
You'll mostly just see Mr. Locksmith here because they just had a baby, but I want to give a huge thanks to both of them for taking some time to help me test this lock.
It'll cam that pin out of this.
They've got an old video editor that still doesn't run in Wine. Should I give it a try in a virtual machine? I haven't used it in years. I mean, it can't hurt. I mean, if you need an actual GPU for your video editor to still work, you can do some GPU pass-through stuff.
That's awesome.
I sent over an animation before I arrived, but we still did a teardown on site to make sure the mechanism was understood.
That is really cool. Yes, I do have springs in case we lose some. Like I think I just did. I've blown up many locks before. If I just lost one spring, that's not the end of the world. I can feel the little click right there of all the pins probably snapping into place because there's like that little ramp.
Have you missed like a wire through there?
No. Here, come take a look. So look, you turn it and then you see the actual chamber fully closed. Because once you start rotating it, your pick just totally stops the playing.
And now that you've seen it,
interesting.
I have.
Yeah, no, I'd have to make a tool. Wow. I mean, I gotta give you a lot of kudos on this. Like, you made it a two-part problem, which is ingenious. When you make an extra one, I could tear down and try and hard bypass it. I would love to have that attempt, but
sweet, yeah.
You can't pick what you can't access. That's what I saw in the video. I was just like, he did it.
So clearly they weren't able to get in, but more importantly, they were a great team to brainstorm with and very informative on where it was lacking in the user experience. This was a huge step to prove out this lock, so if you're in the San Francisco area and you need a locksmith, I highly recommend the Mr. and Mrs. But you may be wondering where we go from here. And in order to find out if this lock is truly proof, I need to send it to some of the best lock pickers that I can find. Luckily for me, there's a spot where they all meet, and it's an online community called Lock Pickers United.
Yep.
Look at your lock. It looks really interesting. You know, the principle is like, you know, get the key away from the human being and to hide it so that you can't manipulate the lock.
That is Artichoke 2000, one of the members of LPU, and he runs his own channel where he goes into excellent detail about lockpicking theory and practice. But I was not expecting what he said next.
The one thing that you have to account for is impressioning attacks. Do you know what impressioning attacks are?
I do, but oh man. I had almost completely ignored a lockpicking technique that doesn't require picks or even access to the keyway.
I don't know if your lock would be susceptible to it. I'd have to see it kind of in person, but it's just kind of the one thing that popped out on my radar as soon as I saw it.
Impressioning can be done.
Yeah, just mold it in clay, redo it. Yeah.
Then apply tension like you would when picking a lock, and there will naturally be a pin that binds before the others. By rocking the key around in the keyway, you can get that binding pin to leave a small dent on the key. This dent is then filed away, and the process is repeated until you're left with the correct key.
Well, I got some good news for you.
Okay, that's one method.
There are ways to kind of minimize impressioning attacks, and they
My way was if you have the physical key.
And chamber design.
Typically, the top pins are interchanged for various shapes to make picking more challenging. However, Artichoke describes how changing the shape of the bottom pins can actually make impressioning more challenging.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty solid design. It's cool.
Never thought about that, changing the bottom pins.
Artichoke taking the time. So if you want to learn more about lockpicking, definitely check out his YouTube channel. But now that I know a little bit more about impressioning and how you need a binding pin to leave little marks, because my core rotates into the pins, I'm not really sure that's even possible. I've also already used up all my money in developing this lock, so I can't make any large changes. But just to be safe, I do have a small change I'm thinking about making to one of the pins. My quick fix is to just switch out one of the pins with a plastic one. This way it shouldn't leave any marks on the brass blank, even if it does bind.
I don't like the idea of a plastic pin.
These are the brave voyagers who will make their journeys to lands beyond my reach, and I've dressed them with markings detailing their purpose and even a view of what's inside. And because taking apart the lock is half the fun, I've made it as easy to disassemble as possible, leaving open ports that are normally plugged and holding together this entire lock with just 2 fasteners. And my favorite feature,
That's amazing, just 2 fasteners.
linking to a document for any receivers of the lock to log their picking progress and findings. For all of you watching, I've included a public link in the description that directly references this document. This way you can keep up with the lockpicking progress in real time. So by now you're probably wondering where I'm sending these to. One will be sent around to the members of the lockpicking community, and the other will be going to a lockpicking channel called LockNoob. We've been in contact and I've been sharing some details about how it works, but he's asked me to include something with the lock that worries me. Key blanks. Of course, and I had some brass blanks made to match my custom keyway. LockNoob will be making his own video about this lock, so I will link that in the description as soon as it's available. These are not ready for production yet, but if you're interested in finding out when they might be, you can fill out the form I've included in the description. This was such a fun journey, and I really love how these locks turned out. There's definitely a few problems and flaws, like the operation of this key and how this magnet isn't actually that strong. I'm sure there are other flaws or ideas on how to improve this lock, so I'd love to hear those in the comments below. And until next time, thank you guys all for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, because as always, there are more projects in the works.
Pretty interesting lock. Yeah, pretty interesting design for that lock over there. Like I said, I'm curious about more of the key function of it than anything, but it's an MVP, so it is what it is. But yeah, hold on, let me close that. Alright. Well, it is getting a little late, everyone. So, I just want to say thank you all for joining me, if you haven't already. Make sure to follow me on all of my socials. The links are in the bio if you don't see them. And also stick around for the raid on Twitch if you're over on Twitch. Join the Discord and the Matrix servers. Again, the links are in bio. But I'm working on new YouTube videos. I got some talks happening, so make sure to follow and subscribe on YouTube, Twitch, Kick, Blue Sky, Mastodon, Instagram. Join the Discord and the Matrix servers. We have an amazing community. I love all of you. Stay safe. Happy hacking. The next official stream is this Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard. I may, as always, have surprise streams in the middle of the week. We'll see when those happen. But you will get alerts for them on Blue Sky, Mastodon, Discord, and Matrix, especially if you sign up for the alerts. Otherwise, you're at the mercy of the platforms notifying you, and they kind of suck at doing that. So, yep, thank you all for joining me. Love you all, and happy hacking.